Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some BandLab clips.
Yeah. Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out. Kind of.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can scratch. With this AI, like scratching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I extra faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way. Once again.
I made it in just the nick of time.
Perfect timing. Welcome everyone to Talking Shh, IT with Glenn and Tony on another Thursday. Plenty of good stuff to talk about.
Sometimes it's just meant to be.
Sometimes. Even this time, it's probably meant to be. Because it is Thursday after all. I think I checked, right? Yep, Thursday. We're good.
It feels like Thursday every day to me now.
And that part of that is because our feed keeps getting better and better. The more we look at these sites, the more this stuff gets pumped into our feed to put us on new little rabbit holes of tech wisdom to go down. So it's always.
Oh, I've been going down some rabbit holes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one in particular would be things like Melodyne, right? And audio to Midi, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, Melodyne is one that the reason why I started going down this rabbit hole this week is because I keep finding myself recommending it and going to it for, audio to serves so many different uses with what we do.
Yep.
Like Melodyne's forte is pitch correction. That's what they kind of push it as, is like, oh, help to fix your vocal pitch problems, but it's so much more than that as well. Like it will transcribe audio into MIDI.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's extremely useful for a lot of things. And in particular now, with being able to split a track apart, like take just a full track and be able to split it into the vocal track, the guitar track, the drum track, and then you could send each of those separately through Melodyne if you wanted to, or separately through, to turn it into MIDI.
That's exactly why I was looking at it this week, because that's what my current project is to break down, flat tracks that I don't have stems for, break down the parts and get them back into MIDI so that I can get new sounds, change the sounds.
Nice.
It's especially useful for drums, because drums is my weakest link. So it's nice when you can take a drum track, bring it back to the MIDI that it can be, and pick a kit.
Yeah, exactly. Now, do you also mess with articulations on each of the notes at that point, or are you just taking the initial performance and just changing the kit at that point as a plug and play kind of a maneuver?
Sometimes I will adjust drums depending on, like, if I want a different type of cymbal, or sometimes the drum that they're using isn't necessarily the drum that I want to use. And with MIDI remapping, it's real easy to just say, don't play that instrument, remap that note to this note, and now all of a sudden it's playing a cowbell.
Yeah, exactly. And that was what I was thinking about, actually, is there are so many recordings where there's just one element that's out of place. It could be a tambourine that's being hit too hard, or too much cowbell, which, I know that's a sin to say too much cowbell, but it could happen. Like somebody could be right at the microphone and smashing the hell out of a cowbell, and it might be overriding the whole track and making it almost unlistenable. So in this way, you could actually take, if you can split it apart well enough, get that on its own track, or be able to get it so that you can change what that trigger hits. They could hit something much more muffled and still be a percussive hit, but just not something that's totally up in your face.
There's never too much cowbell.
I know. Bad example, right? Maybe, okay, if it was the triangle. Too much triangle. You get that all the time, right?
Well, the problem with the tambourine, like for real.
I've seen it happen. I did make a comment about the tambourine is partly packed in with my light stuff when it comes to some of the gigs that we do. And so we usually would just put, that's my keyboard. But it would usually end up on top of one of the subwoofers. Just as I'm setting up, I'd set it out on one of the subs and just keep doing what I'm doing, so that if someone's out on the dance floor, they'd see it and they'd be like, oh, cool tambourine. They'd just go grab it and, have fun, whatever. But so many times it would just sit on that subwoofer until it would rattle its way off and then just land and like skitter somewhere. And so you just hear some, random out of nowhere, like of the tambourine landing. You're like, oh, there it went. Right off the subwoofer again. Because the thing will rattle.
Oh, yeah. That tambourine will play by itself if you leave it in a room making noise.
Exactly. So you got to be careful with the tambourine. But also some people, they have the best of intentions. And some people have good timing. And some people, even with good timing, can end up screwing up a drummer, because if they're
Yeah.
perfect timing, but they're, you know, back in the crowd, like they're not right up at the band, by the time the sound of them hitting the tambourine gets to the drummer, it's late, and it's very late. So like the drummer is hearing everything coming back at him like halfway off, and it's just sometimes it kills him. And so like
a good drummer
usually
will power through it, but like,
right.
you know, until you're used to like ignoring the other beats going on,
Mhm.
it will mess some drummers up.
And it depends on the room as well, because sometimes you get, you know, a back wall compounding the issue where they're getting the actual direct slap from the tambourine and a reslap from the back wall. But again, the drummer should also be playing loud enough where he's not necessarily hearing it. But again, some people, they really muscle into that tambourine because they want to be heard. So
Yeah.
that thing can be extremely loud. It happens. But with Melodyne and with MIDI to audio, there's several different options and several different ways of using it, as you were mentioning. But some of them are if you're trying to break songs apart, or if you're trying to replace parts, replace instruments. A lot of different uses that are worthwhile to look into.
And what we're going to actually be looking, we're going to go beyond Melodyne. We're going to start there. Melodyne is a powerful program. It's a little pricey, and I think the reason why a lot of people go with some of these other solutions we're going to be looking at is because, I mean, everything down to free.
Yeah.
We're going to look at a couple of products that do the same thing for free.
Mhm.
Their accuracy is what I'm interested in, and what these reviews say about these different
Some of it
products,
comes down to,
because that's always been a problem with 4 until it came out with 5 a couple of years ago. 4 had some problems when it came to transcribing complex guitar, complex piano.
right.
It was good for simple vocal melodies, but now with 5, it really, they're starting to tap into AI approach, and
Yeah. That can lift a lot of the workload as well, make things happen a lot more smoothly and a lot more accurately.
yeah, and one of the solutions we're going to look at uses AI heavily. So as we look through these, you'll see a couple of different approaches to changing audio into MIDI and converting it.
Yep. And as far as AI goes, I would say that those are the applications that will accelerate, let's say, the fastest. Like those are the ones that are going to, you know, watching a video today, it's going to be a whole new ball game in a couple of weeks, even, because AI, the way it's transforming things at such a pace that once it's heavily involved in a particular problem solving aspect, the things suddenly leapfrog. So
Yeah,
I'd be expecting.
yeah. One of them goes off of like a neural net. It's actually a Spotify product. I was surprised, and free, and it's only getting better. You know, the more that it gets used, the more people use it, the more accurate it's becoming.
Right. Gotta love it. And that's where, you know, AI training, the crowdsourcing comes in. So like all the stuff, all the art that we've been making, all the stuff that we do when we play around with the AI, I mean, all of that kind of helps to build and instruct the next levels of AI as well. So it's a back and forth that I think works very well in this aspect, where we just leapfrog our understanding and make things work so much better, just because the AI understands what we're going for, understands how we're working to get there, and can kind of make things very efficient to get us there.
Yeah. So the one we're going to start with is actually like an introduction into Melodyne, and the features that came with 5. And you'll probably recognize this guy.
Yeah.
Mike over at Creative Sauce. He's
Indeed.
always got something useful with whatever topic we tend to deal with.
Always.
And with Melodyne, it is something that actually does come with Cakewalk. And, you know, Mike's a Cakewalk guy, so that's why he tends to prefer Melodyne, because it right out of the box, it would Cakewalk beautifully. And we'll also see later on how it's becoming standard on a lot of the DAWs. I saw it now comes free with Pro Tools, and now comes with Studio One, Ableton. So like they've done a good job of getting at least a base version, you know, the core engine of Melodyne into all the DAWs.
And how much would you say that's is that driven by the user base demanding those features be included, or is that something where the option just became easier to include, or
Well, I
combination
think
of?
I think all DAW makers want the ability to convert audio to MIDI as part of a standard feature of a DAW. The question is do they want to reinvent the wheel? And Ableton.
Right.
You'll see later, some of the videos show how to do it natively with the DAWs. Like it's a built-in feature with some Fruity Loops has its own engine to do it. But if that engine doesn't recognize the level that you need to, it's nice that they're incorporating Melodyne as well. Melodyne can pick up some really complex audio, chords and things that like your basic analyzer just gets confused.
Not that it would be an important issue at the moment, but how much would noisy recordings be a problem? Like if you were doing just live recordings of things, does that seem to throw these off a lot? Or
yeah, that would also add to the complication. I mean, the more clear the track and the more distinct each, if there are multiple instruments, the more distinct that they are helps a lot. Like if you're trying to convert drums and it's trying to figure out what is the hi-hat, what is the tom or the snare, it's easier time if it can distinguish between them.
And they're quite distinctive, yeah. Whereas, like you said, guitar, low guitar and high bass can overlap easily. Keyboards can mishmash all in there. It depends what you're listening to as far as who's treading on each other's space really sonically. That's one thing I do like about bass is that I have my own kind of territory down there. It's just me, and I might interfere with the drums, but like that's us. And I can always jump up to cover stuff high if I want, but I don't have to.
And when looking at these programs that split apart audio, like for instance, BandLab Splitter, which I've been playing with, leading into looking at all this stuff, bass is one of the instruments that split really well. Bass, drums, and vocals, they and really do a good job of getting that separated. It's when you get to the other instruments, guitars, brass, winds, other things fall into that catch-all category. So typically you'll see break down into 4 categories: bass, drums, vocals, and then other is everything else.
Yeah, and that's where, as you mentioned, with complexity, if you're doing a tune that has 37 tracks and 18 of them are just isolated little a triangle here and a motorcycle sound there or whatever, like those kinds of things, those can also be problematic or not well represented when it comes to stuff like this.
It might confuse the motor sound with a guitar.
yeah, because they're both other.
Yeah. So the first one that we have here from Mike over at Creative Sauce is why Melodyne 5. It's his top 5 reasons, and because he's so experienced with it, like he gives you compelling reasons to consider this product. Why it would be worth paying for if it suits your needs to the level that he uses it for.
And just being aware of it, even what problems it solves, so that if you do end up in a situation where you don't need it right now, but maybe you're trying to solve a particular issue in the future, and that's exactly the tool that you would need for it.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's going to emphasize the pitch, because that's really it's Melodyne's biggest selling point. They really market it towards vocal production and fixing those little pitch corrections that you sometimes need to. So here we go. Why Melodyne 5? His top 5 reasons at Creative Sauce on YouTube.
So Melodyne 5 is out and it's amazing. Why? In today's video, I'm going to give you my top 5 reasons. Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. Now I was definitely one of those people in the past that was anti-pitch correction on vocals, and I think that's because in the early days of this technology it was given a really bad name with a lot of overuse on some pretty big hits. Now as I started to use Melodyne 4, I really began to appreciate that you could use it to tidy up a vocal performance without sucking the humanity out of the performance at all. And I was really interested to see what they would have in store with Melodyne 5. So I've been giving it a test run and I have to say I've absolutely been blown away by the improvements. They've had some really innovative ideas in this one, and I think it's really worth you checking it out. So I'm going to be going through my top 5 reasons why I think it's an awesome upgrade in this video. Now, if this is your first time here and you like this kind of content, all about home recording, DAWs, gear reviews, plugin reviews, that kind of thing, then please do subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube so that you get notified about my future videos. Now let's get stuck into Melodyne 5. So if you think Melodyne is only about melody and vocals, then you're going to be pleasantly surprised by the way it handles chords and instruments. So what I have loaded up on the screen here is an electric guitar part, which I recorded last night, and I've applied Melodyne, and you can see right away that it's actually picked out the individual notes in the chords here. And if I play it, you'll be able to see that in context. Now, before I go into how I can manipulate that, I want to chat just for a moment about how it detects chords. Now, you can see that it's picked up the key here, the C minor key, when it's analysed the guitar, but it can also pick out the chords which are being played. And that's more than just a labelling feature. We're going to make use of those chords a little bit later on. But I also want to mention that some DAWs do have chord detection, have chord tracks. And if they meet the right standards, then Melodyne can actually make use of those as well. So when you use this, you may already see some chords appear there. But if you don't have a DAW that does that, then Melodyne can do it for you. So right at the top of the window here, we can see an area where the chords are going to be displayed. There's nothing there at the moment, so I'll right click and I'll click on Analyze Chords, and you can see right away it's picked up some chord names there. Now, I've been using this for about the last week or so, and I have to say it does a very, very good job. A lot of the time it just gets the chords correctly, even when they're more complex chords. However, once in a while it does get it a little wrong, and I can see here that it's made a mistake. Instead of that being a G minor, which I know it is there because sorry, G major, because I play the guitar part, it's picked it up as an E minor. Now I can manually change that. I can just double click on that and change it to a G. Now, those of you who know a little bit about music theory know that there's not a big surprise there, because G and E minor are very related to each other. And it is helpful that I've corrected that, because we're going to make use of these chords a little bit later. Now, before we get into that, let's look at see how we can manipulate the notes. Now, I was a bit tricky here, because when I recorded this guitar part, I actually on purpose made one of the strings on the guitar a little bit flat, a little bit out of tune, just a tiny bit flat. And if you have really good hearing, then you will be able to hear that. Let's give you another chance. You hear it mostly in those top notes there. Well, we can really easily fix that just by double clicking on that note there. So I'll just double click on it, and you can see it just snaps up a little bit to the center of the note that it's on. Okay, it's a small adjustment, but it can make a difference to it there and there. And now those notes are in tune. In addition to that, we could simply select all of the notes there and double click on them. And you can see there's adjustments made to all of those notes there. So all of the strings of the guitar have been put in tune. Let's have a listen. Okay, now this is something I'd do with a little bit of caution. I wouldn't do it on a whole kind of track normally like that. It wouldn't be worth it, because you do run the risk of getting some artifacts and things. But if you just want to do it on individual notes like I did at the beginning, I think it's a very cool thing to be able to do when you've realized a week after recording the guitar that one string is slightly out of tune. Okay, so how else can we manipulate these notes? Well, we can change the notes to different pitches, of course, if we want, and there's some snapping available. Now, at the moment, you can see that some of the grid here has a white background. These represent the notes which are actually in the key of C minor. However, we might want to make sure that we're only using notes which are actually in those chords. So we can change our snapping here. I'll just open this up. I'll change it to chord here, and then I'll just double check to make sure that the actual snapping is on chord snap. Okay, so now what we see is the white backgrounds represent the notes of the chord that's being marked up the top there. So now if I drag this note, it's just going to snap to one of the notes which is already in the chord, which is great. So let's have a listen to that. And that's cool, but I might not always want to do that. I may want to use some notes which are still in tune, but not necessarily in the chord, in which case I could change my snapping to chord scale. Okay, so this time we have a sort of notes in the background in white, sorry, grid squares in the background in white. I'm sure there's a better way of saying that. Anyway, and those are the safe spaces within that chord where we can move our notes. They're not in the chord, but they're sympathetic to that chord. So let's see if we drag this one up here. Okay, let's have a listen. Okay, interesting. Let's drag these two up here and that one up there. And now we've got something really cool going on. Probably a little bit out of tune, that one. There we go. Beautiful. So it's really handy. We can actually change the composition somewhat after we've even recorded the guitar and we're dealing with chords. Very cool indeed. Okay, so we detected the chords using the guitar, which was already there. But what if we had another instrument here, which of course I've got prepared, and I'll pull it up here, and this is an organ. Now what I've tried to do is replicate a scenario here where you may have got a short sample which you've looped throughout the song. In this case, there's this organ which sounds like this. Now it's not following the chord progression, as we can see. If we blend it in with the guitar, it doesn't sound too bad. But, you know, not quite right. So what we can do here is make sure that this does actually fit the chord progression. So I've selected all the notes there with Control A. I'm just going to double check that I've got this set up correctly. So we're going to change this to chord, and then we're going to change it to chord snap. Okay, so I've got everything selected. I've got the snapping on for chords, and I'll double click. And you can see that lots of the notes have shifted around. And what they've done is they've tried to fit in as close as possible to the chords which are denoted at the top here. So let's have a listen to the organ by itself. Cool, that's going to fit in nicely with the guitar, but I can still, of course, adapt it. So I could just change these bass notes down here. Let's have a listen. Okay, let's put it in with the guitar. So it's conceivable that if you've got a loop or a sample and you've got it from somewhere and it's not even playing the correct notes or the correct chords, you can still go ahead and adapt it. Very powerful indeed. Let's just have a quick last listen to the whole thing in context with some other instruments.
4.
So I'm using a bit of artistic license here when I call this next one a feature, because it's not really a new feature, which is something different you can do, but it is very important indeed, and they've changed it for this version of Melodyne. And I'm talking about the algorithm, the way in which they detect whether notes are actually out of tune or not. And they say that what they've realized is that when human beings are actually listening to someone singing, they're not listening to the whole of a word as such, or every single phrase, and listening to every single part to see if it's in tune. There's a key part of a main part of a note, which is where we determine whether it's out of tune or not. In fact, there's lots of variations going on with some natural singing which make it sound very, very human. Let's have a look at this vocal that we've got here. I'll quickly play it.
Only yesterday, honey.
Now you can see with this little line that runs all the way up here where the pitch is. And say, for example, on this note here, you can see right in the middle here, it's roughly in the middle. That's the part where we're probably really listening to when we are listening to a note and determining whether it's in tune or not. And it's really handy. What we can do is just double click on notes like this, and it'll just pop them to the center of that note there to make sure it's in tune. So if you did want to individually tune notes, you can quickly do it like that. If we have a listen now.
Only yesterday, honey.
Now, I'm still not a big fan of grabbing all of the notes and retuning them. I like to just use my ears and retune the notes which really strike me as out of tune. But if you wish to do it like this, you can. So as we can see, there's a lot of variation actually going in there. For example, she's singing and she's going to slide from one note to another. So technically this part in the middle is out of tune. And then sometimes at the beginning of a note like this one, you'll have a part which is a little bit sharp or maybe flat, but often it's sharp as we attack the note. Probably we don't really notice it when we're listening to it. You can still adjust some of those things. I can, for example, grab the curve there and just move it around and make some adjustments there just to make that a little bit more perfect. We've got to be careful with being too perfect, right? But we can adjust it nonetheless. You need to use your own ears to determine whether it still sounds natural or not. I'll let you judge.
Only yesterday.
So that's really what they've done, which is very key in this particular release. And I can definitely hear a difference. I'm not hearing so much roboticness. Is roboticness a word? Let me know in the comments down below. But it's definitely improved in this version.
3.
So the next one is something that I know I'll be making use of in the future, because I'm a big advocate for doing some manual editing of the levels of your vocals before you put them through your compressor and before you use automation. And often that means chopping the vocals up and using clip gain to adjust the level of parts of the vocal which really poke out as too loud or are just too quiet. Well, there's some new tools in Melodyne which really do help out with that, and it's going to be a real big time saver. They're called the leveling tools. Let's just see them in action. So we've got this little bit of a vocal here. Let's have a listen.
Only yesterday, honey.
And I'll particularly draw your attention to this note here, which is a reasonable amount louder than some of the others, and this one here, which is quite a lot quieter. So let's just grab all of the notes in that section there. Of course, I could grab all of the notes in the whole vocal, and then I'm going to bring up the leveling tools. And you can see here that we've just got two controls: make quiet notes louder, make loud notes quieter. So as I drag this slider up, let's have a look at this quiet note here. Okay, and you can see that it's made that note louder without adjusting all of the other notes, and then make loud notes quieter. So look out for this one here, and you can see as I drag it down, it brings it down into the realms of the other notes. So look, you don't have to use them to the extremes, but look, that looks pretty good to me there. So I'll just click on OK and have a listen.
Only yesterday, honey.
So that can really be a big time saver when you're just trying to get everything in the right ballpark before you actually do go ahead and use compression. I will say, especially with automation, you definitely still want to be using that on vocals in your mix, because your the volume of your vocals needs to change within the different passages of a song.
2.
So this next one for me is a real game changer, and I've been like a kid with a new toy as I've been playing around with this since I got Melodyne 5. Now, I've been hiding something from you up until now on this interface, and I'm going to reveal it. So I'll go up to the options here, and I'm going to click on Show Sibilance, and you can see here that the display has changed a little bit. Some of the areas of these so-called blobs in Melodyne have changed with those lines being drawn into them. Those are the sibilants, so it sounds like the s and the ps and the ch sounds of our voice. But also in this context, we're also talking about the breath, and you can see a breath just there. It identifies those for us, and it starts to treat them a little bit different. And the reason for that is because as humans, we can pitch the note, the sound of the voice which is making the note, but we can't actually pitch the sibilants. We can't actually change the pitch of that ourselves when we sing. However, previously in this kind of software, when we've been altering the pitch or tidying up the pitch of some singing, we've also been changing the pitch of those sibilants, and that's probably added to it sounding a little bit unnatural. So what happens now is, if we were to take a note like this and I was just to tidy it up like that, it's moved that note to the correct position, but it hasn't changed the pitch of the sibilants. Although that did change visually, that's just a visual thing. It's treated it differently. Even if we drag it up to a completely different note, although it has moved up there with it, it hasn't actually changed the pitch of it, so that it's still at the same pitch. So all of these things add to making sure that it keeps natural. Now, what's really cool about this as well is we can actually change the volume of that individually. Ping, light bulb moment. You know, all of us who have used DSs in the past are now thinking, This could be really, really handy. So we can actually look at that sibilance there, and I'll bring up this tool here, which is the sibilance balance tool. Now look what happens now when I drag up and down. You can see that the note here has got much quieter, but the sibilants sound the same. I can do it the other way. It restores the note to the original value, and I'll bring that S down. Let's bring it all the way down to the bottom. Now it's going to sound really silly. Have a listen.
Only yesterday.
I just like doing that for fun. But anyway, I wouldn't do that under normal circumstances. So let's bring it up to a normal value.
Only yesterday.
So you could grab all of the notes in this particular passage, and then you could adjust all of the sibilants all together, quite potentially replacing using a de-esser. I think it's probably going to be more efficient because we're not working with particular ranges of frequencies and then reducing them like we do with the de-esser, but it's identify those parts of the vocal which don't contain a note, and it's enabling us to adjust them individually. Really, really, really cool. I think even the leveling of it is very, very cool for breaths as well. If we have a listen here,
Honey,
you can hear that breath from Susie there. So let's just grab that and make it a little less obvious.
honey, I was the
Now, you could get rid of it completely. I could even hit the delete key on the keyboard and get rid of it. Let's have a listen.
honey, I was the
And look, sometimes that could be very cool if you want to keep, something very, very tight sounding. But I would probably most of the time leave it in there. It's not bad to hear breaths. It's sometimes they can be a little over accentuated. This is a great tool for adjusting that.
1.
So as well as changing pitch in Melodyne, we can also change timing as well. And with timing, they've also taken this sibilance into consideration in a really clever way. So let's take a look at this same passage again. And what I'm going to do is drag out the end of this note here to make it a little bit longer. And it's going to make this note shorter. So I'll just grab that and drag it out because I want to extend that note. But look at what's happening to the sibilance. That S there is staying the same length, okay? It isn't touching the actual duration of that S sound. And that's because as humans, of course, we can intentionally extend an S, but normally we kind of leave it around about the same length. So it isn't stretching that out. That would sound really odd. So that's very, very cool indeed that it does take that into account. But on the other hand, when it's dealing with breaths, it handles it a little bit differently. If we look at this section up here where we've got our breath,
honey, I
if we were to change the beginning of this note here and make it earlier, look what happens. The breath does indeed change length. It gets shorter. And that's because a singer would do that. If they didn't have as much time to get a breath in, they would take a shorter breath. So it's not leaving the breath the same length, regardless of where we put it. So let's have a listen.
honey, I was there with
Not that Susie would ever sing that part like that, but you get the point. So really, really clever considerations there, in my opinion, really adding to the whole natural nature of these adjustments that we make. So Melodyne 5 comes in a number of different packages at different prices. So check the link in the description down below to find out what they are and what you get in each package. You can also check upgrade options there as well. Now I have to say, even the cheapest of those packages contains a number of the features that we've discussed in today's video. Now if you've got any questions at all, please do ask in the comments down below, and myself or somebody else from this wonderful community will try their very best to help you out. If you did like this video, make sure you hit the like button. That lets YouTube know that it should show this video to other people as well. If you didn't like this video, hit the dislike button twice. And if you do like this kind of content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell on YouTube so that you're notified about my future video. Also, if you've been watching a whole bunch of my other videos and you're interested in the gear that I use, please check out my gear guide. There's a link for that in the description down below as well. Now, it's been nice to see you here today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.
Oh, I like his outro.
Oh, yeah. And that is super useful, as you mentioned.
Yeah, you know, that's why I love his, because I mean, why I went to Melodyne and what I used it for, hadn't even thought of these implementations and wasn't even aware of some of the sibilance feature.
Yeah.
Eye opener.
Oh yeah. And even just even the pitch corrections part, not necessarily even to do the corrections, but just to see that quickly whether things are that well in tune or not. You know, just the analysis of the song, being able to, you know, change the sibilance, take out the sibilance, the breaths. No, I assume that would also do the same, similar for background noise of whatever type, you know, air conditioner noise, like what I have here, that sort of thing. You could probably get some of that out of there too. But yeah, just extremely useful, and I could see, you know, making a lot more use of something like that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, see, he gives me a compelling reason to stay with Melodyne. Just because it is the most powerful of all the things we're going to look at tonight. This is the standard by what the others are trying to reach.
Right. And some of them,
and that's the
feature here and a feature there, but none of them are really a full replacement, would be my guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the primary difference when you look at the different versions of Melodyne. When you go from the cheap one, everything he showed here is available, even with the low end version. But when you get to the high end one, that's where the ability to recognize complex chords and transposition, transcribing gets more useful with the high end. It can transcribe anything.
Also, what you mentioned about the trying out different variations, trying out different notes, like, you know, you can just play something very simply and then go into a thing like that and just, you know, change this note to make it a walking bass line down or a walking bass line up. You can experiment with ideas like that without having to actually, you know, play that part 50 times over. You can just sit there and experiment moving notes around individually in there. And the part where I could just sit there and hit, you know, like if I had a groove that I wanted, either on a guitar or a keyboard or whatever, if I had a specific groove I wanted, I could just play that groove in the one key and then later decide what I want the progression to be and change it using that as well. That's
isn't that chord snapping a cool feature? I had no idea that it had that kind of snapping. That's useful
to me,
when you're trying to find like an alternate note feature. You can't go to the wrong note. It helps you to stay locked in on your chord.
Yeah, and I would have thought it would have sounded more unnatural, and that's why I would have assumed, oh, like, yeah, sure, it's a feature, it can do that, but then you listen to it and it's obvious that it, you know, this was shifted or this wasn't, and this sounded fantastic. So that did not sound, you know, it sounded exactly as it would have if the person was, you know, literally playing it at those different pitches, which is amazing that they're able to shift it that naturally.
I know pitch shifting audio these days. Never thought we'd get there, but we seem to have. You know, in the old days, if you were doing this with a wave, you'd hear artifacts. You'd hear like a wave that's stretched or pitched up and down. In the old days, they would speed up the wave to get it to a higher pitch, and now they've got this elegant shift.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It reminds me of the tape to CD change, where with a tape, if you sped it up or if you wanted to, you know, make it a higher pitch, you had to speed it up like you're saying. But then on a CD, you could actually adjust things, just the actual pitch. Total different scenario, but same idea of a shift in the way things are being done. It makes it easier to do that sort of thing now.
Today, the chipmunks actually would sound natural.
Exactly. That would be fun. Put me as a chipmunk. Got to shift that voice really high.
So the next one that we're going to look at is like a counter to, you know, if Melodyne isn't your thing or it's too pricey, we're going to be looking at some of the alternate approaches. And this one comes from, it's a new one, Recording Studio 9 over on YouTube.
All right.
And he's going to show us a Melodyne alternative that I believe is free.
That board right there in his shot from his main page there for the YouTube page, that was one of the Studio Live boards we have. I think it's a 24.
Oh, and this one's by Waves. I actually grabbed that last night to start checking out.
Nice.
The Waves, you know, they've got some awesome products as well, so I wouldn't be surprised they're keeping up with Melodyne on this market.
Mm-hmm.
So-
Let's check out some Melodyne alternatives.
Recording Studio 9.com. Audio to MIDI conversion, Melodyne alternatives.
Hi everyone, welcome back. There are many videos out there on YouTube that show how you can convert a recorded instrument audio file into a MIDI file, so you can have maybe MIDI instrument of the same notes being played, like the guitar, vocals or bass, and few others. Majority of them rely on Melodyne to do the conversion. Some DAWs have the built-in pitch correction engine that can do a very similar job of converting the audio into MIDI notes, like Logic Pro X, Cubase, FL Studio, and few others. What if you are using a DAW that doesn't support that and does rely on Melodyne to do the conversion, like Cakewalk in BandLab? Or if you are using PreSonus Studio One Artist Edition, which only comes trial version of Melodyne, like in Cakewalk. When you install Cakewalk by BandLab, you get 30 days of Melodyne to try it. During the trial period, you can not only do pitch correction, time shifting, but you can also do audio to MIDI conversion. But once the 30-day trial period ends, not only you cannot do any pitch correction anymore or time correction, you cannot even convert any audio to MIDI, to the best of my knowledge. I've tried this many times and I'm pretty certain it won't be able to do it. But there are alternatives and I'm going to show you a couple of them. One is pretty old technology as well, but it still works. Samplab VST is a recent plugin that you can download and install for free that allows you to upload your audio file into the cloud system that does the conversion and returns back detected MIDI notes. And then you can drag those detected MIDI notes onto a new instrument track and you have MIDI. And here's an example. So you've got the audio. Let's get uploaded and converted to MIDI. And of course, being MIDI, you can change any notes you like. This is really great. Very handy if you're doing small audio files converting from audio to MIDI. Personally, I have few issues with it. One is that you will need an internet connection to do the conversion. Now, this may not be a big problem. Of course, once the conversion is done, you don't really need the internet anymore. You do have the MIDI notes. But what if the system goes down? Or what if they start charging a monthly subscription? Again, I have no affiliation and I'm not even endorsing this. But please do give it a try. Now, you may not be aware that Waves Tune from Waves also does MIDI export. Waves Tune was one of the first VST plugins that allowed pitch correction manually alongside Antares Autotune. Matter of fact, Waves Tune was one of the first plugins I actually purchased from Waves, back version 9. And I do remember I paid a fortune for it, even on special. But now they're only $35.99. Now there are two editions of it. The one you need to get is Waves Tune. Waves Tune LT does not have the MIDI export option. It is cheaper by $5, but miss this one out. The one you need to get is Waves Tune, the full edition. And recently I decided to upgrade my version 9 into version 12, and it's going to cost me $18 to upgrade. It is an alternative and probably much economical than buying Melodyne. It does very similar work. Of course, Melodyne has a newer technology than Waves Tune. Waves Tune relies on rewire technology, where Melodyne is now already using ARA2. But if all you wanted to do is have a little bit of pitch correction on your vocals for notes here and there, and then you want to do at the same time audio to MIDI conversion, it's really great price. Again, I'm not a fan of Waves. I do have limited amount of plugins. Most of them are still version 9. I haven't upgraded, and they still work. If you do decide to buy Waves Tune, I will leave my affiliate link at the bottom. That way you get some percentage off. So it might be even cheaper than $35.99 for you. And I might get maybe $1 or so. So let me show you how you use Waves Tune to convert audio to MIDI. Once you have Waves Tune installed, I've got a project here, a guitar part, that's solo. Let's have a quick listen of the guitar part, which is just this part here, I want to convert it into MIDI. You get the idea. I want to have string part that's playing the same notes. Just gonna add waves tune mono. And here we are. Just gonna leave everything as it is, and let's press play and let it capture. Okay, done. Let's have a look. It's all there. All the notes are there. We are not trying to pitch correct this. We just want the notes to be converted into MIDI. The note part, this is the part where it tries to join multiple notes which are close to each other into one single note. So just watch the screen here as I adjust that. So I'm just going to select all of it, and I'm going to increase the note number so that we get less notes. As you can see around here how that note as it's disappearing. So just below that, so we're not losing too many notes. I'll say about 50 is a good one, or thereabouts, depending on how fast the notes are being played. And once we've got that, we apply and we click Export MIDI. And under my project, I'm just going to save it and overwrite the one which I've already done as I was testing. So now we have MIDI notes of the guitar playing. And let's add an instrument. I'm just going to select the string section and create it. Okay, just going to drag that up over there. And from my browser of the files, let's go to Files, Project Files. That's where it is. That's Wave Tune. That's the file that I saved, the location that I saved. It all depends where you save your files. That's where you're going to find it. And I'm just going to drag it right there. And here we go. We have all those MIDI. Let's double click. And these are the MIDI notes that the Waves tune converted. Of course, we can go in and edit, but let's have a quick listen to see what it sounds like. Just going to open up the console. Let's have a listen. That's just a string. And there we go. That's how easy it is. Of course, you can do the rest. Now I can turn Wave Tunes off, make sure it doesn't auto-tune and get the life out of the guitar playing. And let's give it a try again. Okay, there's a bit of low note there, just so I can show you how we can edit some of those notes. So sort of the guitar's low notes that there we don't need. And if we can see any extra notes around, yeah, we probably don't need that one either. And there we go. That's how it's done. So if Wave Tune is what you're after to convert audio to MIDI, make sure you use my affiliate link below. That way you get some discount, so you don't have to pay even the $35.99. I'm pretty sure it's about probably 7 or 10% cheaper than that as well. And if this video was helpful, make sure you give me the thumbs up. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great time making music. And I'll catch you in the next video.
Now that is not a bad alternative. If you're really just looking for that quick, like, you know, his example was great. A guitarist who, say, wants to double their guitar with strings like that, $30 compared to $300. The simple functionality there is worth the door entrance to the door.
Exactly. And getting used to doing things that way, the workflow of doing things that way is also a game changer, because that's, you know, a whole different way of looking at doing parts and all. If you weren't using Melodyne or those types of things before, that really changes how you can do things and the kinds of things that you can do.
Yeah, and his
that you couldn't play before, and you can all of a sudden you can play close to how it was and be able to shift those little parts that are giving you trouble, for example.
Yeah, and you know, as I was saying to Jay, like, he wants to make beats, and how, like, some of this, if you're not musically inclined with an instrument, this helps you to get over that hump. It helps to create the triggers, you know. So when we're looking at beats later, if you don't have the rhythm, which I don't, being able to convert this stuff and make the triggers and then pick the sounds that I actually want to get played during those triggers, now you are beat making without having to play the instrument.
Yep. And even just taking, you know, beats that you like and being able to take those and re-trigger them, or use those triggers to do other things, and then shift things around again, change them slightly. It's like, I like this part of this beat, but I want it to be similar to that, but I want to change it up a little so it's not the same thing. You know, you can kind of adjust things that way.
Yeah, and in the case of this example, like, he can play guitar. I bet you he can't play violin, but he found a way to bring a violin to complement his guitar.
Exactly. And that's, you know, if you were a keyboard player, you could always, you know, select a keyboard sound and play something on the keyboard. But if you're a guitar player, your options are more limited. So this is, you know, a good option for that as well. Plus, it would sound more natural, I would think, playing a guitar part and having that, you know, translate to violin than playing a violin part on a keyboard, just because of the articulations and whatnot. And we don't actually play links on this show. This show, we talk about stuff and we play videos, but you can submit the links to Angified and she'll check them out and possibly put them on a future show on probably a Wednesday or a Friday.
Yeah, DM at Angify, the account at top there.
Yep. We listen to them, check them out later.
Who did we have next? Oh, this is the AI one I was talking about. Now, if it's the one I'm thinking of, I think this one actually comes from Spotify. And so, yeah, it is the one from Spotify.
Nice.
So, you know, this one's going to be around. They've got the resources and they're not going anywhere.
And they see the importance, apparently.
And with this one, we're talking a Neuralink network, so it is getting better, stronger, and faster. It's like the bionic translator. Yeah, and this one I found over at Theoretically Media. Theoretically Media.
That's a new one for me.
Yeah, this is a freshie.
Very cool.
Yeah, he's going to show us the best AI audio to MIDI tool. And it's free, folks.
Free is good. Music to our ears.
A quick video here today on an AI-powered audio to MIDI converter from a surprising place. We're taking a look today at Basic Pitch, a audio to MIDI converter from Spotify, of all places. It uses a neural network to convert audio to MIDI, and it's very good. And because it's a neural network, it's only getting better. So I wanted to dive in and take a look at it. You can find it at basicpitch.spotify.com. So I'm in Ableton here today, but obviously you can use any DAW for this since we're just talking about MIDI. What I did was I put together a quick progression in Scalar. It is a Lydian thing, or A-flat Lydian? A-flat Lydian, yeah. Let's listen to it real quick. Okay. And in context with bass and a melody line, it goes a little something like this. Okay, so those are just the built-in sounds from Scalar, obviously. So I took the MIDI from them and ported them over to Massive, and now we have this. And just to really put the AI through its paces, I wanted to put a drum track in there as well. Obviously, Scalar gave me MIDI tracks, so what I'm going to do now is convert the MIDI into audio and then see how well the AI converts that audio back to MIDI. I'm not going to play the full thing, but this is the full track that's been flattened. Okay. And just as a bit of a control factor, I had Ableton convert this to MIDI via the Convert Harmony to MIDI track, and this is what it spit out. Yeah, it struggled a bit there. So generally, my finding with audio to MIDI is that it's anywhere between like 65 and 90% right. This definitely leans more towards the 65. It's interesting that I put that little swing in there for some reason. All right, let's go take that over to Basic Pitch and see how that does. Okay, so I've uploaded the test flattened audio to Basic Pitch, and let's hear how it did. Not bad. Definitely closer, and I think leaning more into the 80 percentile for this. What I really like about Basic Pitch, though, is that you have these MIDI adjustments in here where you can sort of play around with note segmentation. You can actually watch it live up on that screen. If I take this down, the segmentation of notes kind of bunches up a little bit. So let's take a listen to that real quick. Same thing with the model confidence threshold, which is, I guess, how the AI is listening to the track. And you have some other controls like minimum pitch or maximum pitch. So if you have a sub bass that's really screwing things up or something really high in the frequency range that you need the AI to not hear, you can do so there. And then the minimum note length as well. So there's a lot more control and flexibility in this than in, say, Ableton's audio to MIDI converter, which is just basically you're going to get what you're going to get. Having used a lot of audio to MIDI converters, I will say that there's always cleanup required. It's never going to come out completely accurate, but this is pretty good. So once you've got something that you like, you just hit the download MIDI button and re-import it back into your DAW. Also, I'll kind of admit that the tinfoil hat part of me sort of wonders why Spotify is allowing us to have this. We're definitely training something on their back end when we upload stuff, but I mean, half the stuff that I would do it with is going to end up on Spotify anyways, so it doesn't really matter to me. So if you found this helpful, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'm definitely focusing a lot more on AI tools and how they can help creative individuals. So if you're interested in that, yeah, subscribe. All right, we'll see you.
Definitely interested in that for sure. A good topic. And
that's why I subscribe to that channel. If he's going to cover more of these AI tools, stuff like this,
oh yeah,
worth keeping an eye on there.
It is fertile ground for sure.
And I have the same tinfoil hat mentality. Like the first thing I wondered is like, how long is Spotify going to keep this free? But he's right. We are kind of doing a service to them using this. They're developing
the interaction and the data. Those are, you know, what they're getting out of it. As far as, I don't need a tinfoil hat for that. To me, that's more of a, you know, what is that? What do they get out of it? And yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. That, you know, they're getting good training, good, you know, good interaction, good human interaction with the product. That's good.
Yeah, and it does seem to be pretty accurate. I mean, he made a good point. Like almost anytime you're trying to do this, you probably gonna have to tweak things. The interpretation is not always perfect.
Yeah.
But compared to 10 years ago, if he's been playing around with these toys for the last decade, we've come a long, short amount of time.
Yeah. And as the tools improve, again, the things that you can do with them, and even just using them differently, where a song like that, like you could hear how there was some, whether it was arpeggiation or just, broken chords, a lot of tinkly notes, like stuff like that, that are harder to discern maybe for the software. So the software might have more difficulty with it, but that's where that segmentation slider comes in. So you can say, oh, this tune has a lot of that going on, so I need lots and lots of notes. Or you can say, go the other way with it. I just want the main tones on the main beats and stick with that, and then we'll go forward from there.
Yeah, I like the example that he used. Gave it a good variety of things to interpret, and really tested it.
Yep, and adding the drum track, having it sense that's good stuff too.
And that when you're playing with these things, that's kind of what you want to do. Like you saw with Mike's video, he's like, I purposely flatted a note just to test it.
And then fixed it, and then fixed the other one. Like, yep, there you go. And you don't want to go too perfect or too much fixing. You can go overboard with that as well. How perfect do things need to be. The other thing I was going to mention is it depends on the importance of the project. When we were talking about the difference between the free products, the $35 products, the $300 products, a lot of it comes down to, well, what is this project for? I mean, is this a song that you're just going to work on and put out and be proud of and just have there, or is it something that you're planning on selling and this and that? The level to which your production level goes, like you want to do everything well, but there's a point, is it worth going the extra, couple $100 product just to put that extra 2% or whatever on, better that the song might be from doing it that way? That sort of thing.
Yeah. In the case of why I'm looking into this, it's because I need to rebuild some songs.
Yep.
Like, the artist has kind of laid down their idea. They've grabbed a little bit from there and said, like, this is the song I'm trying to do. Well, now to take that, deconstruct it, and rebuild it from the ground up. So I can get individual tracks and control of each instrument.
Yep. And again, that's one of those where in the old days, what I would start trying to do if I had a project like that and I didn't have the tools like this to do it with, I would be trying things like EQ, do like a low pass and just take, 0 to 100 hertz and just try to get a bass line out of whatever's down there, and just kind of work with things that way, and then take the top part and see what's there, and like kind of take little narrow bands of EQ to see what's in that range if you can isolate one of the instruments. But that would be a whole lot more manual stuff, where right now the AI is able to just kind of latch onto those and go, oh, that's a bass, that's this, that's a kick drum. So it knows what's doing what.
Yeah, and in the old days, you basically had to remake those tracks manually.
I've done that as well. I mean, doing it where I basically would just, have that as a reference track in a project, and then, okay, let's start with, the bass line, and I would just basically record myself doing bass with that in my ear. So I have that as a reference track. So my timing is in there. I'm locked in as if I'm playing with, the band, and then, okay, and now I can just do other layers. And once I have bass and, guitar chords and a basic drum, rhythm, essentially, then I can take the main, the whole track that was in there out. And now it's just these three, building a reference track around that. But now the timing is solid because I kept it, with a reference track when I started. But there's no
it helps to have that reference track.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. And now there's no part of that reference track in the final song. It's gone. It's just my parts that are back in. But they were just using that as a timing reference, essentially.
Yeah, it's kind of like molding a statue on top of itself.
Yeah. That's what I would kind of approach building the stuff like that. Mainly because for me, the drums are the difficult part. Like I wouldn't want to try to just start me sitting at a drum kit with a record button. Hit the record button and okay, I'm going to do the drums for whatever song, start to finish, and use that as a starting point. Like that's not really the way it would work for me. I would need to just, if I had the song playing in my ears, I could play along to the song for the whole thing, and then take that as a reference, and maybe fix a little part here, a little part there. That's where like I would get into the whole, copy this part over here, like, especially a drum track or like a bass line. It's very repetitive, right? So you're doing the similar, the similar moves, the similar phrases over and over. So I did that phrase really well here, but I messed it up over there in the song. So I can just copy from here, paste it over there, and you'd never know. Yeah. So that's one of those fixes that I would do to not have to sit there and re-record. If I got 99% of a song right, and I just messed up that 1 or 2 spots, I could save myself, hours of re-recording by just fixing those 2 spots by doing a copy paste.
Now we
So as you get
mentioned Jay had asked about beat making,
Yep.
and this next one is kind of focused more on the beat making side. This one comes from at Pulse Music Group on YouTube, and he's going to walk through Neural Note, which is another neural network application. I believe this one's also free.
Nice.
We'll see what he says. But this one is kind of like, beat making centric.
Mm-hmm.
Because this stuff is as useful there as it is for vocal adjustments, as it is for figuring out what the hell somebody's playing, tempo recognition. That's another feature of Melodyne that, like, when I first started using it, set my click tracks. Because when I play on the piano, my tempo really floats, it changes. And what I'm finding is if I record naturally, and thankfully with Melodyne, you can take the WAV file, drop it in Cakewalk right onto the timeline, right up at the top, and it will auto analyze the tempo. And I see I go from like 119 to 117, back up to 120. I can actually see the tempo changes at the micro level.
That is one of the reasons people suggest playing with a metronome also, although I know a lot of people hate or say they can't play to a metronome.
I have a tough time with the metronome, so this really helps to recalibrate the click track.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that makes
still play naturally. Yeah. Still be able to play dynamically. Like I really don't play at a consistent tempo when it comes to the piano work. If it's synth work and things like that, it's much easier to play jump or something like that and stay in time.
Sure.
But if you're playing like, Beethoven or Chopin, it feels like you're going slower. And
yeah, sometimes intentionally, like a lot of times that's written into the music. And some people thought that the markings that some of the composers put in the music was to be louder and softer, like crescendos and decrescendos, to make it, where the music's building up or the music is, tapering down. But in some cases, it's a speed up and a slow down thing where they're intending it to be faster at this point and slower at another point, even though the tempo at the beginning was kind of set. It would tend to float depending on the passage. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's those moments where you hit a chord and you're in a measure and you hold it just for, breath, for emphasis, and then the drummer's waiting and holding and waiting and holding and.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's why I keep, to have a tight band, like everyone's got to be on the same page for all those moves too. But getting AI for beat making. Nice.
Yep. From at Pulse Music Group, we're going to look at Neural Note, another, I think, free product. We'll see.
All right.
Hey yo, what's good family? You already know who it is. It is your boy Thesis. Today's video is a very important one, not only because the VST is free, but this can change literally the way that you produce. What is it called? It's called Neural Note. You guys keep it locked. Stay tuned. All right, so I promise you this is not going to be a long one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through how to utilize Neural Note and how it can help enhance your production. And the first thing I will do is I will show you how to load it up. The way that you want to do this is you want to go and you want to add an audio track. Of course, I'm using Cubase, but this is for any DAW, right? Just add an audio track. Reason being is because you can't use Neural Note on the same exact track, and you have to have two separates. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna load up an actual instrument, right? And let's just load up Complete Control, and then I'll have the actual Neural Note on the audio track, and you'll see why I'm gonna do that in a minute. So let's just go ahead and do some basic house cleaning so you guys can see it. All right, so now that I have this actually up, and I'm gonna go to the audio track, and I'm going to put in neural note, and now neural note is up, ready to rock. All right, so the way that it works is you can take any waveform, load it in, or you can go and record your actual wave. Today, we're going to focus on just loading up the actual waveform so that we can extract the MIDI from it to see how good it sounds against the actual wave, right? So I'm going to load up a wave. All right, so this is the waveform and it comes up instantly, right? So now since I have this MIDI, I'm gonna go and we're gonna load up a sound, and let's just pick, I don't know, let's go to OVO keys. All right, I like that. So now since we have OVO keys up, all right, that's the key, and here's neural note. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drag the waveform into the new sound. A way that I like to cross-reference and check is that I'll play the sound against what I just did. So this one I know was a guitar, right? So here is the sound of the guitar first. So that's the guitar. Here's the MIDI of that sound with the sound that I'm using under complete control. Yeah. And it looks like it caught all the information. Looks like it got all the MIDI information, and it sounds really good too. So what I want to do is let's play it with the actual guitar and then see how it sounds. I think it did a really good job. I don't know what you guys think. I think it did a really good job. Now, here's one thing I do like about neural note, right? So there are other functionalities that you can do with it. You can change the sense of the note sensibility. You can change and split it. You can go and do an added pitch bend, do a single pitch bend. You can change the actual note of this. Do this, and then we're going to change the key, right? So let's change it. We know in C sharp. Chromatic, you can even do major or minor, right? So you see, you can change it. You can change any of the note sensibility, which is dope. You can split it. So let's see how that sounds. Let's just play around with it. So see, you can manipulate and change and do any type of thing with this. That's one thing I like about this. Like, it doesn't give you just one way of doing it. You can make it your own. And here's the dope thing. It's free, right? Can't beat that. It's free. This is definitely a game changer. I'm sorry. And to me, the huge plus to this is that you can go right here and you can change your MIDI actual tempo, right? So if you match it up with your actual tempo and your DAW, but you can go and change the actual MIDI file's tempo, which is really, really dope. Like, I really like this a lot. All right, so as you can see, you guys can utilize this to the fullest possible potential you can do. Any wave you can get the MIDI from. All right, guys, please make sure that you go down to the link in the description and download this. This is something that you got to add to your arsenal. I know I added it to the top 4 VSTs, but I had to single this one out. I don't think a lot of people know about it. Plus, when you go online, there's not a lot of things you can see on YouTube about it. So I want to make sure that I bring this to you guys with the utmost importance, because this will change your game of how you produce. All right. So if you guys like this video, please make sure that you go drop a like, comment, and if you haven't already, and I don't know why, subscribe to the page. All right. Definitely make sure that you guys keep it locked. We got a lot going on, especially the summertime. There's a lot of surprises around the corner. So you definitely want to make sure that you're locked into the channel, all right? But definitely make sure, drop a comment and let me know what you guys think about neural note. Share this video to a lot of producers. I guarantee you're going to change somebody's life. I don't know how many times I've said that, but I guarantee you did it, all right? But once again, you guys already know who it is. It is your boy Thesis. Peace.
Oh, and I took Thesis' advice and I shared it.
Yeah, you did. Nice. That's a good one. Like
Yeah,
you
that
said,
was
free is good. Speaking my language there. Good to have tools that can be useful for things like that as well. Pulse music is where we got
yeah,
that from. Mhm.
just beat the BPM shifting
Mhm.
that
Just
he
like you were talking
mentions
about.
there. Yeah, because like you can do that on the wave. Like BandLab will allow you to change the BPM, which people do on my Ford all the time, and it's pretty clean as long as you don't change too drastically. You jump up more than 10 BPM or down 10 BPM, it starts to get a little funky. But if you do like he suggested and you turn it back into Midi, Midi can change tempo cleanly and flawlessly. It might sound weird because it's slower, but at the same time, you're not getting pitch shifting and those artifacts.
Yeah, because the artifacts are no good. That's what just gives away the game right there. It's like, okay, you didn't record that like that.
Well, it's why in the old days I avoided like stretching or, again, transposing with a wave file and trying to pitch shift it. I avoided it like the plague because in the old days it did not cleanly do these things.
Yeah.
We're in a new age of wave stretching.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. A time where we can, it's more about the creative vision in the first place and trying to use the tools to take the obstacles out of the way to just get to the vision.
Yeah, these tools we're looking at, there's a lot of obstacles that get removed.
Yep. And improve the workflow. As you start working with these kinds of tools, like you'll find your workflow getting that much better where you can do, you're more productive essentially because of the fact that you're able to do things that would have either been complicated or would have been left sounding less professional, let's say, at the end, where you can put more of a polish on stuff this way.
Just can't play that instrument. Like, I'm good with the keys, but any other type of instrument, it's an obstacle for me. This helps to bring those instruments to me.
Yeah. And again, keyboard is a good choice to if you're going to be stuck with one instrument. Being stuck with keyboard is a good choice because the keyboard can sound like essentially anything. But again, there's the articulations are what become the issue. If trying to sound like brass or woodwinds, you're not getting the breath stuff that you would get in a live performance. Strings, you're not getting the bends or slides the way as naturally as they would be on those instruments. But
yeah, especially
the basic functions of the parts you can get down though.
Yeah, guitar nuances. Like that example that he did there was interesting because the guitar that he was capturing was a steel string and you could hear the fret noise.
Mm-hmm.
You could hear the little nuances as he was playing it. And as I was listening to it, I was wondering like is the AI picking up those fret noises? And if it was really good, there is fret noise on guitar samples depending on which ones you use. He picked a guitar sample that was had a little string behind it, a cleaner nylon sound. But if he had picked the right, like I have a steel slide patch on my Halion that would have taken that and would have brought over the slides as well as the notes.
And in some cases, it's also whether it's the aftertouch or whether it's the velocity of how fast you hit it in the first place. Sometimes the patches will change up based on that. Like if you hit really hard, you might get more of an impact sound because it's trying to play that note that much louder. It knows that to make that much louder of a sound, it's going to sound like this when you actually played it. Where if it's a very quiet sound,
that's exactly how that patch actually works, is velocity sensitivity.
Yeah.
If I hit it really hard, it brings in those noises.
Yeah. So sometimes it is about that. It is about figuring out on the patch. And, with some of the patches, they won't have any of that where it's just louder and softer and whatever. But, with certain types of instruments, like, again, with the woodwinds and horns, I'm thinking breath. And with strings, I'm thinking bends and even vibrato as well. But that would be more of a mod wheel thing, I guess. But...
Yeah, simulating breath is pretty good on synthesizers, but if you are one of the lucky ones who actually has like a breath controller, like the Roland Aerophone,
Yep, yep.
or they're like MIDI clarinet,
Mhm.
then you bring the natural breath to the digital instrument.
Exactly. Most of the horn players that I've worked with are just playing regular horns. They're not playing digital horns. And I think with strings, a lot of times the violins are that we've worked with are electric violins where they have the plug-in and all, able to amplify the violin and do things like Devil Went Down to Georgia and things like that.
Oh, and when it comes to like violin techniques that you can bring into the sample, they, not just velocity, but like when you are using the pitch wheel and the mod wheel, some of those patches will have very cool features which get like pizzicato strikes versus staccato strikes.
Yep. And that's all about it's all about the delivery there, because it's not just the notes now, because in the beginning it's all about just the notes, getting the notes right, but then those types of articulations really make the difference and really make it sound more human than artificial.
Yeah, and that's the key, is to make it sound more human, unless you're going for like complete electronic sound.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, different style.
Hey, EDM makes it work. So this next one, again, another free one. We're on a roll here with the free ones.
Like it.
Kind of hard not to try them. I'm going to be playing with these all weekend and seeing which one really can nail down these tracks that I have to convert.
Might even be that one does the pitch shifting better and one does time stretching better, or whatever. It could be different tools for different jobs, but at least run them through their paces and see what's what.
Yeah, I could see actually using a couple of these together to accomplish the whole mission. So I found this one over at some HTK on YouTube. And the one he's going to be talking about, I actually came across a couple of different videos on this particular one. Samplab gets a lot of mention in the audio to MIDI world. So apparently they're making noise, because like every other video as I was looking through all of these was really pushing this one.
Nice.
So for a free product, it's got some love out there. That's always a positive sign.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's see what some has to say.
What up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your guy, some. Hit the keys. Here today to bring you guys a quick review and demonstration over Samplab. Have you ever heard a sample and wanted to convert it over to a MIDI, but didn't want to spend $700 on Melodyne? Well, guess what? Samplab might be the free VST plugin for you. Make sure if you guys like this content, though, you drop a whole elbow on that like button, hit subscribe and that notification bell, so every time we bring you guys a new video, you can be the first to see. But let's go ahead and get into this plugin. Some, hit the key. All right, guys. So I brought you to the website first, and basically it tells you it's revolutionary audio sampling editing. It's powered by AI. And so basically how it works is you're just going to take the sample, you're going to drop it into the plugin. It's going to do their part and figure it out. And then you can freely move the notes and change all the notes. So one thing that I do want to state is that I'm not here to support plagiarism. So, you do need to be changing the MIDIs around and stuff like that. This is a great tool for you to be able to find root notes and samples if you're sampling something and you don't know where to put your 808 pattern or stuff like that. So I just don't want to give you guys tools to plagiarize. I want to give you guys tools to create. So with this tool, it's going to start off like this. So basically it's very simple. They still have some things they're working on, so you can't change the quality or the mono to stereo yet, but that's coming soon. So when you click on those, it's going to tell you message from server, this feature will be available soon. So with this plugin, all you're really going to do is drag and drop. I'm going to use my guy Dixon's sample pack, this Invictive sample pack. The reason I'm using this sample pack is because the cool thing about it is that he has stems and he has the MIDIs. So we can drop the audio in here and then we can compare the actual MIDI and see if it matches. So let's go ahead and we're just going to pick one of these. All right, so we'll go ahead and pick this one right here. We'll drop it in there, and it takes just a quick moment. It's only going to pick a certain amount of audio, so I think it goes like 6 or 7 bars. So we're going to go ahead and continue, and you can move this around for where you wanted to get the audio from. So again, it's going to take just a moment to process the sample before you can start editing stuff. So we'll just wait, and that's how long it takes. And you can move this back and forth, and you can get whichever part of the sample that you want. So we're going to go ahead and move it all the way to the beginning. All right, and so then with this, what you're going to do is all you're going to do is drag and drop it over the Samplab. Boom, just like that. Now you have it. So now we have the MIDI up here in Samplab. So let's go ahead and push play. We're going to go ahead and all right, so now let's go ahead and compare this actual MIDI pattern with the MIDI pattern of this sample. So let's go ahead and drop this just in Analog Labs. And as you can see, the notes are pretty accurate. So it doesn't necessarily get the exact accurate of how long a note is or stuff like that. But like, let's go ahead and move some of these notes down and stuff. So we'll just go over here. This is enough area. So like, let's say we move these notes, and you can see the ghost notes. So you can see it's all lining up pretty well with what's being played. So that's pretty dope. It may miss a few notes here and there because, you know, it is AI and it's just trying to detect it. But then again, you can take that and you can also use this like to get your bass notes. So like, let's say we didn't know what our bass notes were going to be in our beat. Well, now we have it. So now, you know, you can basically put your 808 pattern in, and you can, you know what I'm saying, you know, it's going to be on beat. So we know that that root note was D, so we know this 808 will match. So we know that'll match, you know, and so then we know that it went up to G. So boom, we know this one will match. We know it'll be on point. So, you know, that's a good thing about this plugin is that it can help you build on melodies, and it can help you, you know, figure out your key for your 808 and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and try another one and see how accurate it is with another one. It still is, they're still working on it. So there are some glitches, and I do want to tell you about the glitches because I don't want to set you up for defeat and have you go through some of the same struggles that I went through. So let's find another one. I don't know, let's go with this one right here. What does this sound like? All right, so we'll use this piano right here, and we're going to push continue. So sometimes the BPM gets off a little bit. So if the BPM gets off and you change the BPM, sometimes it'll let you drag it and drop it, but sometimes it won't. So I would just leave the BPM as it is, and then I would just move the notes around up here if I had to. Just wanted to let you know that so you don't get frustrated if you do change the BPM and wonder why it won't drag and drop up there. So we'll go ahead and drag and drop that in there. Now let's go ahead and look at the MIDIs on that and see if they match again. So as you can see, it looks like a lot of them do match, and again, it's missing a few notes, but you know, it is what it is. So as you can see though, that it's hitting that note, you know, it's hitting these notes. So I mean, this is a good tool to help you find some of the notes and find some of the keys. And so I'm going to show you guys one more thing that I haven't showed you so far. So we're going to hop into my drum kit, and I'm going to grab this sample right here. And we're going to pull it on over into Samplab. Continue. Now you're not bound to drag the MIDI notes on this Samplab. You can actually drag them and put them on whatever plugin or VST that you want to. So we're going to go ahead and drag these and put them on AnthemScore. Boom. And so what I forgot to show you guys earlier was, you notice how it grabs the velocities for you. So it'll get the velocities that it thinks that the notes are and everything like that to make it, play more realistic as well. So this is what it sounds like in Omnisphere on this guitar. I can't stress enough, if you do a lot of sampling or you're looking to convert audio to MIDI or you're struggling with samples and the root notes for your 808s, this is definitely the plugin for you. I'll leave the link below in the description. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this plugin. Is it something that you're going to grab? Is it something that you think's worth it? Make sure if you guys like this content though, you drop a whole elbow on that like button, hit subscribe and that notification bell so every time we bring you guys a new video, you can be the next to see. Appreciate you guys' time as always. Grab this, don't plagiarize, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. All right, guys and gals, thanks for watching the video. Make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Make sure you hit that notification bell so every time a new video comes out, you can be the first to know. Let me know what tutorials you want to see next in the comments, and see you next time.
Some hit the key.
I saw Glenn getting his elbows ready.
Big elbow. The whole elbow on the like button for sure.
Oh, and
Like
that's
that.
what the HTK is for. Hit the keys.
Hit the keys. All right.
Hit
He's
the
gonna tell you
keys.
at the start. But I said, no, he'll find it. He'll find it.
Eventually, I pick it up.
That's good stuff. It's good stuff. I like it a lot. And again, there's there's the stuff where we go to fix the stuff in the song. Now, the next one that we're going to look at is actually one about sheet music and scoring, and that's one of the ones where, to me, that was something important for trying to get songs submitted. Like get a copyright, for example, you need to have a score of how the song goes. Where the chord stamps, et cetera, et cetera. Chord stamps, melody line, lyrics. So to get stuff from a recording onto sheet music was always a challenge as well. So the question is, if I think we found something, there's a good option for that as well.
Yeah, actually, this was one of my favorites as far as the information goes, because I do come from a notation, background. In the old days, that's how you scored your music.
Yeah, and I did have a classical piano background, so I do remember that, but vaguely.
MIDI really is just an extension of sheet music. It's sheet music 2.0. When MIDI came out, everything that used to be done with ink on paper was translated into digital notes to capture the performance.
And since I wasn't actually doing as much keyboard after like my 20s, let's say, or in my teens, I was doing more guitar. If I did anything over the next following decades. So a lot of it was just tab. If I was doing anything, instead of looking at staff, I was looking at tab, because tab made it easy to do whether it was bass or guitar. But once I moved to the string instruments, that was the bigger method of looking at things. Still the importance of being able to see what the notes are and being able to play, and being able to figure things out just by looking at paper and then making music from it was always something that intrigued me, and I always liked that.
Yeah, I wish I could read sheet music faster. Thankfully, with the MIDI, like I can see a virtual keyboard, and I'm more of like, if I see somebody playing on the keyboard, I can see what they're doing and pick it up instantly. But if I'm trying to read it on a staff, every good boy deserves fudge. Which note am I?
There they are.
Yeah, it's really cool these days with the like keyboard visualizations that we have. I wish I was learning piano now.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of good tools, man. That's one of the big benefits.
Yeah, and what I like with this one, what he's going to be mentioning, I have a subscription to MuseScore. I've actually been with them for like the last 2 years. It is a useful service that they have.
I'm pretty sure that's the one that we tried out.
They have free, like, you can go sign up for free and get powerful notation tools. And again, they will convert audio to MIDI, but the paid is actually services worth it with them.
Yeah. I think that was the one that we tried the free version of, and the idea was just to have Jeff, the keyboard player, play the most simple version of the song you can, like just literally block chords for at changes, play the block chords, and then play the melody line as it goes, or the vocal line, whatever, and then we'll get the words written out, and just start from there, try to get it on paper, to be able to, then you can modify from there. If it doesn't hear it quite right, timing's a little off or whatever, we can go back and edit it. But having the actual basics in there without having to program each and every note or write down each and every note into the software would be very helpful. Being able to just listen and produce, a score for us.
Yeah, and I actually started using it because I had a project where all I had was the sheet music, and I had to convert it to MIDI. And I was like, okay, I can play this and punch it in and manually do it, which would have took me a ton of time, or use MuseScore, which has a nifty feature where you can take the sheet music scan, bring it in, and just like OCR, it basically does like object character recognition and translates it into MIDI for you.
Right.
So that's an additional function of it that's useful.
Mm-hmm.
And,
cool.
and what he's going to be, this is a musician startup over on YouTube. What he's going to be talking about here is, what we've been looking at, how to convert audio to MIDI. And he's going to be looking at two different programs to do it together, AnthemScore and MuseScore. Now, I'm not familiar with AnthemScore, so I'm interested how he's going to utilize that in this process.
Yeah, and again, MuseScore is the one that I had checked out at one point, so I'm interested as well.
And if
New
you
find for
ever,
me as well.
yeah, if you ever need the features of the Pro, you got a buddy.
Yeah, I do. And actually, I got an elbow warmed up for the like button too.
Yeah, both my elbows are ready.
Ready to go.
So how to instantly convert an MP3 audio file into sheet music for free. Again, another free one. We're on a roll.
Gotta love free.
Welcome. I hope that you are doing well. By the end of this video, you will be able to convert an audio file, something like a WAV file or an MP3 file, into sheet music that you can edit and print out. Now, to do this, you will be using two different pieces of software. One is MuseScore, which is a piece of free music software that you will be able to edit the notes with. And the other is AnthemScore, which is the software that actually converts the audio file to the sheet music. So let's get started. So these tools can be useful for converting the audio file to a sheet music, but they do have limitations. And I'll make sure to stick around to the end of the video to see the different problems that you can run into and how you can work around them, as well as what you may or may not be able to do with the software. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to head to two different websites. The first is lunavirus.com, and I'll put the link to this website in the description below. And this website is where you will be able to download AnthemScore onto your computer. And then the other website that you're going to want to head to is musescore.org. And this is where you will be downloading MuseScore. So again, you're going to want to go to each of these and download the correct version and install it onto your computer. And a quick note about AnthemScore is that it starts out as a free trial, so you can download the trial first. And or if you, I would probably start with the trial first, see if you like it. And then if you want to purchase the software, then they have a couple options to purchase. But here are a couple of the features that you can see that AnthemScore is going to do for you. And then MuseScore is free. It's open source, and it's just a piece of free software that you can use for the sheet music part of this. So once you have those downloaded and installed on your computer, you'll want to open up AnthemScore. Now, what I am going to attempt first is I have several pieces of several MP3 files and several WAV files that I'd like to show you. First one is this Mary Had a Little Lamb. So you can see it's a piano piece. It's just a single line, and it just plays the melody. And so in order to start the process of converting that to sheet music, what I'm going to do is go up to File, and then I'm going to click Open. And it's going to ask me what file I would like to open up. And then I'm going to click on Mary Had a Little Lamb. once that is complete, then it's going to ask me a couple questions, and it asks me if I'd like to convert the entire song. I do. You can also click a section of the song. We'll do that later. And then you can do find notes, which is what you're going to want for the sheet music. Spectrogram, you're going to see what that is in a second. And then it asks you a couple other settings. You can just keep those as they are to start. So you just press OK. And now it's going to convert that piece of music into something that can be read into sheet music. So you can see it's going to pull up into the viewer what it looks like. And this is where you're going to be able to see if it worked or not for you. So you can click out of the viewer and see the notes represented here. And for those that are familiar with Midi, this is what a Midi reading would look like. And you can see it did a pretty good job. I can go up here to the left-hand corner and go ahead and press play. And you can see it did a pretty good job at recognizing the notes and then putting them here. Now, what we need to do is actually get this into MuseScore so that we can edit the notes if we need to. So in order to do that, you're going to go ahead and go up to the left-hand side here. And what you want to do is you want to export this. And it's going to ask you where you'd like to put the score. So again, you can put it in any folder that makes sense to you. And what you're going to want to do is it's going to ask you for the format. And you can see you have several different pieces formats. So if it did a good job, you can just export it as PDF if you want to print it off right away. If you need to edit it, which most of the time you do, you're going to want to have the format be a music XML or a .xml file. So click that to have it selected, and then it'll ask you, if what instrument you might have a recording of and those kinds of things. And once you feel like that's all correct, then you just press OK. And now it's going ahead and it's clicking or converting that. And once it's done, you will find it in the file that you set it to. So here it is. Now, for many of you, it'll show up like this blank piece of paper. So what you need to do, it doesn't have a program. So if I click on this, it's going to ask me where I would like to open this. Let's say I didn't have that option. You're going to right click it, and then you want to open with. You might need to choose another app. And then I've got MuseScore here. You might need to go even further, but I've got MuseScore, so I'm going to click MuseScore and press OK. And now it is going to ask me would I like to apply their new typeface to the score. I'm going to say go ahead. And so this is what it's going to look like. They'll put the title at the top, and that's the title that you gave it when you were saving it. And you can see it did a very good job at converting that into sheet music. And again, once you're in MuseScore, there's a lot of functions here that you can use in MuseScore. But again, this video is just to show you how to convert a WAV file or an MP3 file into sheet music. With having it open in MuseScore, you can manipulate the notes. I can, click on this and, add notes or take away notes or those kinds of things. But again, this is mostly for transcribing music so that it saves you some time and energy. You're probably still going to need to do some editing. Now, if you would like more videos on how to use MuseScore, I have many different videos on how to use this piece of software, so you can check out my other videos for that. One in particular is that if you don't know how to put in notes, that's the first one to start with. So I'll put a link around here for the note entry video. Okay, so now that you know how to convert an audio file to sheet music, let me walk you through a couple problems that you might run into. So, and then also I want to show you how to use AnthemScore. There's a couple more tools in here that you probably will enjoy. So I want to try another piece of music. So let's say, so that worked really well for the piano piece. And one of the things I want to point out is that AnthemScore really only works well if you've got a single instrument or maybe two instruments that are like far apart with the range. So basically they don't have the same range. So the first thing I want to do is go back up here to, I'm going to close this out first. Close the file. I'm not going to save it. You can save these files too as AnthemScore files if you want to edit them later. So next I want to open a different kind of piece of music. This is a Beethoven symphony. This is a much more complex piece of music. For this one, I am going to only convert part of the song because it takes quite a while with the bigger files. So it's going to go ahead and convert that MP3. And real quick, that's what it came up with. I just wanted to show you what this sounded like before converting it. So you can see it's a full orchestra, okay? And so this is what it came up with on the sheet music. And you can see it's pretty, it's not quite correct. And the one main reason it's not quite correct is because of one of the limitations of this program is the pulse or the rhythm. So basically, if what you're trying to convert was not recorded with a metronome or something like a metronome, like a click track, then this piece of software will not do a very good job at creating this sheet music. So with with the music that you're converting, just keep that in mind, that you want to have music that's pretty close to in time. So you can see this is what I came up with. So it would take me a long time to edit all of this to be correct. And again, you might be using this for several different reasons. You might not need the sheet music to be perfect. You might just be doing it as a hobby, just trying to figure out what the notes are, so you don't have to transcribe it by hand. Okay, so once you've got it into AnthemScore, you can edit it in AnthemScore. And what you can do is just right-click in this area, and you can move notes around. You can delete notes. So if I right-click on that, it deletes the note. If I right-click again down here, it'll add an E. And again, this will affect the sheet music that it creates. Over here on the left-hand side, there's a lot of different tools that you can use. Right here is where we've got the note selector, or add and removing notes. That's what we've got now. So to do that, you have to have that enabled. So that's one thing. And then it also has, opacity of notes. So you can see the notes will fade out. I keep it nice and bright. The other part of this I want to show you is right here at the measures. So let's say it had a problem with the rhythm. You can, like what I was saying earlier with, it really needs to be in rhythm. If you, if there's a part, there's a retardando or something that's a accelerondo, you can go up here. These numbers at the top are the measures, and then you can click and then drag that around so that it puts the measure more where you want it. To undo anything you do in here, just push Control Z, and that'll at least get you moving in the right direction. So those are just a couple of the things that you can do in AnthemScore. If you, you can explore this a little further to see some other things. You can change the key signature. So let's say you wanted to, transpose this quickly. You just go over here to the left-hand side of this, and then click on the blue area there, or you can just look over here to the left-hand side, and you see key, E flat. I can go ahead and change that to F if I wanted to. Now the problem is it'll put the sheet music in F, but it's not going to actually transpose the music. It's just going to put it in the key signature F. So it's got limitations in that regard. So I'm just going to click back to E flat. And again, you've got your time signature and those kinds of things that you can edit. So let's go ahead and see what this looked like whenever I go ahead and export it as an XML file. And then I'm going to open it in MuseScore. So this is what it came up with in MuseScore. And I would have to do quite a bit of editing for this piece of music. Okay, one last thing I want to show you in AnthemScore and just point out is that if you want to do anything like choir music or anything with a lot of different instruments, it's not going to work very well. The main reason is because it's trying to hear all of the notes, and a lot of times it doesn't hear all of the notes correctly or put it in the correct rhythm. And again, you have to do a lot of editing, either in AnthemScore or in MuseScore. One last thing that you want to be mindful of is whatever recording you're using, you want to make sure it's in tune. So you now know how to convert an audio file into a piece of sheet music that you can edit in MuseScore. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments section below. I do my best to answer those. I have other MuseScore 3 tutorials available. Again, start with the note entry video if you haven't watched that one. That's a good place to start for using MuseScore. And lastly, if you like this, please subscribe and like this video. I thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.
I did subscribe.
Yes, indeed. And I like that. I got
Musician
the
Stardom.
Bam.
Yeah, I double elbowed that one.
Very
but
cool.
and now I see why he was mentioning AnthemScore and what he used it for. It's interesting because with MuseScore, when you do have a subscription, it has that convert feature, so you can kind of get around the two-part process here with that commercial service.
And I was even thinking about the splitter that we talked about before, being able to take a song like it was, if that Beethoven song, for example, if you were to run that through a splitter, would it be able to split the violin part from the cello part, for example, and be able to use those individually into something like that?
And you know, a violin and a cello, it might have an easier time. What he mentioned there when it came to doing chorals, and you know, the sound of choir voices can sound a lot alike. I can see how that would completely confuse the engine.
Right. And again, I think the less instruments you feed it at a time, the better it can hear things. So if you can split the music out to the individual parts, that's great. If you can't, then, you know, the parts that you're feeding it, you're going to have to probably do, like he said, a lot of editing to get the parts to more accurately be represented on the sheet music.
And, you know, these tools are going to be most useful to instructors, teachers. One's choir teachers most likely probably swear by this software for putting their arrangements together.
Yep. And again, being able to sing each part individually, for example, into it, then you'd be able to, you know, oh, here's the part for this part, you know, and they sing the part and then boom, it's just one part. So puts it right on the sheet music and they can go right from there.
Now that is some good products, and for what he was doing there, all free. So, you know, you get a lot right out the box. But if you are serious when it comes to notation, conversion, scoring, and all of that, MuseScore, I can proudly say, like, I didn't even think twice when it came to subscribing. And after the first year was done, I had to continue it because I was like, I'm going to need this. This is useful, and very rare that, like, I'll find a service that I'm happy to subscribe to every year.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as they do their job.
That is a good test, though. You know, the resubscribe after a year is a good test.
Now, we don't want to forget our mobile users, and there's a lot more mobile users these days making music that I think over on the PC side. And this channel, I mean, I don't see myself going mobile or even full mobile, but it would be nice to, like, grab an iPad, go sit in a park and whip out a tune. And this guy's channel is all about that.
There are some features even in you know, BandLab or whatever that are specifically for mobile as opposed to the desktop version. So it's worth exploring just for those things as well.
Yeah. There's some things you can only do with the mobile app that you can't do on the online editor. So this one's at Mobile Music Pro over on YouTube, and what he's covering here, again, we're converting audio to MIDI. And what I found interesting with this one, this is the only one that I came across for this category where real time was mentioned. And we've looked at some real time. You know, we had that guitar night where we were showing, like, guitar to MIDI plugins, which that's what they do. They do it in real time, and you play your guitar and all of a sudden it's a MIDI controller. And you know, with a good iPad, which is what I think he's using in this particular example, it's got enough power to pull this stuff off.
Very cool.
So this is at Mobile Music Pro, how to convert real-time audio to MIDI.
Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am your host, Vortex, from MobileMusicPro.com, your home for mobile music production. And if you are new to the channel, what we do here is release weekly videos teaching people how to produce music on their iOS device. And in today's video, we're going to be showing you how to convert your audio to MIDI right on your iPad, right after this. And remember, folks, if you do enjoy this content, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Now, a lot of people think that using apps to convert your real-time audio to MIDI is just for guitarists. And don't get me wrong, there are some amazing results that you can achieve with this app and a guitar. For example, using electric guitars to play bass or acoustic guitars to play synthesizers. It can get real fun real fast. But another great use case that does come into play for modern producers, especially those of us that can't play the guitar, is going to be extracting MIDI from loops. And in fact, audio loops are being used by producers pretty much everywhere these days. And there's a huge selection available out there for many great sources. And in fact, we have many different melody loops in a bunch of different genres on our website, and we'll have a bunch more on there by the end of the year. And don't forget to stick around to the end of the video to find out how you can download our brand new completely free MIDI pack that comes with 17 of the most common chord progressions. Alright, and now with that intro aside, let's start trying to convert some of these audio loops to MIDI. Alright, now the first thing that we're going to do is show you our current project, and then we're going to actually show you the steps of routing the MIDI from the MIDI Guitar app back into Cubasis, and then finally we'll take a look at using the MIDI Guitar app as an AUV3 insert effect. Alright, now without further ado, let's take a look at this project. Now what I have here is a project with some drums and some bass and several different audio loops. And what we're going to try to do is extract the MIDI from these loops. Now I've actually already extracted the MIDI and then fixed it up a little bit, but we'll explore that more in just a minute. Now all of these loops will be coming from various different sample packs that you can find on our website. Now the first of those loops is going to be a guitar loop from our completely free Essential Synthwave pack. And let's just give that a quick listen so we can hear what that sounds like. Alright, perfect. Now you definitely heard some different pitch bends, some different slides in there. Those are a little bit more hard to capture, so for today, we're just going to try to capture the lead melody, or the lead melody notes that's coming from these loops. So now what we want to do is begin using the MIDI Guitar app, and get that MIDI routed into Cubasis. So to do that, we're going to be using the Audio Bus app. So first up, let's go ahead and open up Audio Bus, and for the input, we're going to put in Cubasis. So we'll scroll down to find Cubasis 3, get that inserted, and then in the middle for the Effect app, we're going to use the MIDI Guitar app. So we'll search down for MIDI Guitar. We'll tap on MIDI Guitar. And then for the output, you can just leave that blank for now. So now we have our audio routed correctly. We have our audio coming from Cubasis, which is going to be that loop inside of Cubasis, going into the MIDI Guitar app. But now we need to tell the MIDI Guitar app where to send the MIDI that it's going to generate. So we'll go into the MIDI section here in Audio Bus. And then for our input, we will be looking for the MIDI Guitar app here. And once you do find your MIDI Guitar app, you'll notice a right arrow here, which is going to display all the different instances. Now currently we only have that one instance open here, as you can see, instance A. So we'll tap on that. So now we've grabbed the MIDI that MIDI Guitar is sending out, and we need to send that over to Cubasis. So we'll tap on the output and hit plus, and we're going to send that over to the virtual MIDI bridge. Alright, perfect. Now we've got our MIDI and our audio ready to go. So let's open up Cubasis and get this routed in. We'll tap on Cubasis, get that open, and here we're going to add a new MIDI track. So we'll go to the bottom, click Add MIDI. And then let's just make this red so we can really see what this track is. And we'll rename this to Record MIDI In. All right. And now what we want to do is set this to have no instrument. So we'll tap on the little piano. We'll tap on the left arrow and tap on No Instrument. Now this means that this track will not be producing any sound. And that's fine with us right now because we're just trying to capture the MIDI. And we'll be able to hear the sound coming from the MIDI Guitar app. But now we have to set up our routing. So we'll go to the Routing tab. And in the MIDI In, what we're going to do is select Audio Bus 3, so we'll tap on that. And that is about it for the routing process. And now we have to configure MIDI Guitar just a little bit. So we're going to open up that app now, tapping on MIDI Guitar. And the first thing that you want to do is choose an instrument so you'll be able to hear that MIDI that it's generating. So we'll go to the instrument here. And I like to choose the piano, so we'll choose MDA piano. And I do like to turn the mix all the way up as well. We'll turn the master down just a bit here. And what I like to do is set the tone even, so I just set this right in the even so the line is perfectly straight. And I usually keep the gain and the velocity curve right in the middle and the center there as well. Now this next step is going to depend on how you actually want to track your melody. Now what we're going to be doing is trying to get just the main MIDI notes out of the melody. We're not too concerned with chords or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to change from polyphonic to monophonic. And again, this works way better when you're trying to just extract the MIDI melody. Because otherwise when you're sending all sorts of different sounds on it with delays and effects, and then a bunch of different chords, it gets a little confused on what to actually output. So after setting this to monophonic, the next most important step is to adjust your noise gate. Now this is going to be different for every single loop that you set, and it makes a really big difference each one of these little ticks that you choose. In fact, the difference between getting a good melody could be the difference between one or two of these little ticks. So make sure to get that dialed in just right so you can get the best sound possible. All right, looks like we're all set up here. Now we can use the audio bus controls in the top right hand corner to start from the beginning and start recording. But so you guys can see what's going on, I actually want to do this inside of Cubasis. So let's go ahead and open up Cubasis. We'll start from the very beginning here. What we're going to do is tap on this track so that only the MIDI track is set to record. All right, so we're all set to record, so let's hit the record button. Alright, so as you can see now, the MIDI recording in here is never going to be 100% accurate. And in fact, I don't care which app you are using to convert your audio to MIDI, it's never going to be 100% perfect. But it is going to get pretty close, and you'll just have to do some adjustments after that. So let's show you what we mean here. We have the adjusted MIDI for this. And actually, before you want to go back and play anything inside of Cubasis 3, what you want to do is disconnect your connection from Audio Bus. So we can just open up Audio Bus here, close out a MIDI guitar, and we'll just disconnect Cubasis. And again, you can just add that right back at any time if you want to do a different take. But let's go back into Cubasis now. What I want to do is remove that recording that we did and play back a different one that we did with a little bit more dialed in settings here. And again, it's not going to be perfect, but let's just hear what that sounds like one more time. And then we'll play the adjusted version after that. And this MIDI will be coming from a piano. So let's hear what this sounds like. Alright, some of the interpretation there does get pretty funny. But if we open this up, you can see that right away there's going to be a ton of extra notes. So the first thing you want to do when you're editing this is to remove all these little ghost notes. And then what I do is I play this back with the actual melody, with the melody turned down a little bit lower, so that I can dial in those notes exactly. And that is what I did, so let's go ahead and hear the finished version after I modified that MIDI. Just double tap it so you can see it as well. You can see all those little ghost notes have been removed. But every single note that you see here was inserted by the MIDI guitar app. So let's hear what it sounds like. Alright, perfect. Now let's play this back with the melody itself so that we can see how accurate we got. And hopefully you'll be able to hear the guitar in the background there underneath the piano. Let's play it. Alright, perfect. And that only took a few minutes of adjustment after recording the original MIDI. Alright, now if you don't mind, I'd like to show you a couple other examples in addition to that one. So we have our second melody loop here, and let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, perfect. That melody was called The Suits, coming from our Memories Melody Pack on our website. Now let's hear the interpreted version that the MIDI recorded, and then we'll play back the adjusted version here. Okay, now let's hear this with the original melody to see how accurate we got. Alright, not too bad. Now let's move on to the final loop. So let's hear what this sounds like. So let's hear our interpreted version now. Again, just took a few minutes there with the melody playing in the background to get it just right. And let's hear it. Alright, cool. Now let's hear it with the melody in the background. All right, not too bad at all. All right, and now finally, let's take a look at using the MIDI guitar app as an AUV3 effect in our insert effects slot. So we have that same melody pulled up that we just took a look at, which was the hole-in-one melody, and this was the moon guitar stem. And now let's go ahead and load an instance of the MIDI guitar app over the top. Now, unfortunately, the AUV3 implementation of this app definitely does make the text a little bit small. In order to see anything, you pretty much have to full screen it. Now, once we do have this app pulled up, we can start going through all of the different instrument settings, guitar settings, effect settings, and much more. But what's really fun is just to go to the presets. So we'll take a look at some of those here. And let's just try the classic organ first. But before we do that, let's go ahead and A/B this so you can hear what it sounds like without the effect. And then we'll go ahead and enable it after the first loop. All right, now let's hear what this sounds like with the effect on it. So already a pretty dramatic difference there, but when we start going through these presets, you can really see how much this app can change a sound. And even if you take a look at the effects here, tapping on any one of these effects will load the additional settings, or you can change the effect by tapping on the arrow. You can see there's a bunch to choose from here, including a tube amp, overdrive, delay, chorus, flanger, and much more. But what's cooler than that is you can actually even add AUV3 effects in here if you want. So you can really start to get pretty crazy. But let's just try a couple more presets here so you can really see how this can change any sound, whether that's coming from a guitar or a melody loop. All right, so a pretty big difference there, as you can tell from adding the effects on this app. But there's definitely some more magic to be had when you start adding different effects on top of the MIDI guitar as well. So let's just set this back to one of the original settings here. We'll go back to something a little bit simpler, like that classic organ. All right, let's close that. And then after you throw a Bleach Slow Machine on top of that, it can really start to get interesting. And then finally, even after that, a perforator. So let's hear what that sounds like. All right, there you go. The possibilities really start to become endless when you start stacking these different effects. But don't sleep on the MIDI guitar app, folks. Tons of great gems in there. All right, and now it's time again for our final thoughts. And if you are still rocking with us, then we just can't thank you enough for being here, especially those folks that are here every single Wednesday and Friday to watch our live streams and our live premieres. Now we hope that this video did convince you of at least one additional use case for this amazing MIDI guitar app. With all the different studio quality effects and the ability to add additional AUV3s within the app, you can really start to see how this app can become a super powerful effects processor. Now, if you do want to see this app used with an actual guitar, definitely make sure to check out the amazing YouTube channels like Jamie Mallender, The Sound Test Room, and Jade Star. All those channels have fantastic tutorials using this app with real guitars, so definitely make sure you check them out. Now, we're not quite sure how advanced you are in your music theory skills just yet, but for those of you that aren't, we have a brand new pack that may help you out. This new pack is going to come with 17 of the most common chord progressions used in Western music. And in fact, these chord progressions cover pretty much 90 to 95% of all of those songs. Plus, it even comes with a bunch of piano charts showing you how to play those chords in case you do want to get out of your piano roll every once in a while. And you can grab this pack right now for 100% completely free at mobilemusicpro.com/free. We're pretty much always releasing new stuff over here at Mobile Music Pro, so if you do want to keep up with everything that we're doing at the channel and be informed on all the latest mobile music news, deals, information, and more, then definitely make sure to check out our completely free newsletter at mobilemusicpro.com/newsletter. And so, until next time everybody, keep talking music, and we'll see you later. Hey everybody, Vortex here, and if you're not aware yet, we now have over 100 fully edited mobile music tutorial videos. And we make music every single Wednesday live on our channel right inside of Cubasis on our iPad. Plus, we also have a bunch of free sample packs, guides, and more at our website at mobilemusicpro.com/free. And so if you are into that sort of thing, producing music on your iPhone or iPad, then definitely make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the videos on the channel that we know you'll love.
Damn, Vortex is going to convince me to buy a fucking iPad, huh? Well, you know, with the tools he's using there, that guitar MIDI converter app, the way he used it as a bridge to connect to Cubasis, that kind of MIDI routing into your DAW and Cubasis, if I was going to do something on an iPad, I mean, I think I'd go with that before I'd go with GarageBand. It's a full-fledged DAW.
Yeah, solid. And that's the thing, is even just seeing the workflow and, as you say, watching the routing and seeing how intuitive it looks as far as, oh, you go here, boom, I want that to go to that, and I want that to go there. And, you know,
Right.
it's as easy as finding them on a list and saying, I want that to do that. And usually it'll just go.
It is pretty intuitive compared to other mobile apps, but you notice he's using a mouse on that tablet, because there's no way that I would be trying to do that with my finger, all that DAW work, those knobs and dials.
Sure. Now,
I
one thing about knobs and
want a
dials,
mouse.
one thing I want to mention about knobs and dials, because that's important on a touchscreen interface, is that a lot of people always, they see a knob or a dial that needs to be turned, and they look at it and they assume they have to hit the, you know, on a spot and go around like the knob.
Yeah.
But the idea is what you have to do is just hit the knob and go up and down as if it's a bar, and you'll see the knob turn based on how much up or down you go. So that's one little tip, is that you don't want to go around. You're not trying to go and turn the knob, because if you just go like on the knob, you're like, why can't I make it go? I'm turning and it's not going up. It's because you got to hit the knob and go up. One of those things people don't do.
I can't wait till we get to the point where with VR or augmented reality, the knob, you'll feel the knob like you would have, and you'll twist it like you would have virtually. Give it a little more time with the right kind of glove. It's possible to like feel like you're turning a knob even though you're not, if the glove can fool you.
One thing I will say is that, let me change it here. When my buddy Mike uses the iPad to mix, he actually always uses a stylus. And it's, when we talked about it at the beginning, he was using the stylus and trying to slide up and down, and sometimes it would skitter. And, you know, you go, when it's trying to turn up, so it's not smooth. So I mentioned, like, you know, trying to just do like roll it, like you roll the tip of it so that it's, you know, you touch to a certain spot and then you just kind of roll up, and then you're getting it very smooth. And you can get very fine increments if you're using a stylus and you're just using the tip and kind of rolling up like that. So that's one tip that
do you use the stylus when you're talking to the personas?
I don't usually use the pad to talk to the personas, but if I was, I would probably as well. I mean, I can use my finger as well, but one thing that's funny is if you see, you know, you see his iPad from like an angle, there's just, you see the streaks of where all those spots are, because everywhere that he goes up and down, it's like they're all there. And even if he cleans it off completely, like within, you know, as soon as he starts, because he's using all the different faders and he's moving it back and forth all the time, and, you know, getting things set up. But there's a spot where it's like, you know, this is where home is, right? So like on the home row, it's like that's where he'll see like those are like burned in essentially.
Oh, I'm sure like his hand has been intimate with that screen.
But he has a
knows
box
him.
of styli, like a whole box of them. He's got at least 20 in there. And I mean, sometimes he'll just be going through them. Like he'll grab one, like try to use it, doesn't work, throw it back. Grab another one, try to use it, doesn't work, throw it back. But sometimes I think it is the buildup of a film, like just from doing so much of the adjusting on the pad, so much like the tips are leaving whatever residue on there. But he
And
does
you
find
know
one that's
what?
good, and he'll work with that one for weeks, no problem.
When you're precision adjusting like that, like you want to go 0.5 up,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm still old school. I will double click and I will punch in exactly what I want because trying to dial in at those little levels, even with a mouse, can be a pain in the ass if it's not set right.
Yeah.
That's
One thing
why
is
remapping, like, if you do get a MIDI controller, 50 to $100, and remapping a couple of knobs and sliders to be whatever the hell you do want to change, once you do that, like now you do have a real knob. You don't have to do it with the mouse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the Axiom?
That's the Axiom, yeah. So it's got eight of those, just 8 programmable knobs that you're talking about just right there. And then you got 8 pads right here that you can do things with as well. Plus the regular.
And telling your DAW, making the DAW learn, like first you teach the DAW, I'm turning this knob.
Yeah.
Then you tell it, like, when I turn this knob, change this over here.
Yeah.
And now, from now on, when I turn that knob, that's what changes in the DAW.
And what I envision with something like, something like that, where I've got 8 knobs available. If I was listening to a track and I was trying to do mixing and I had to, if I had to mix a song really fast or, get things all squared away, I could be listening back to it and I could have certain things set up, like 4 tracks that I want to be able to adjust volume on, and then 4 separate effects that I want to be able to dial in at a certain time in the song. Because some songs, like, you want to put delay on, but only at a certain climax where they go like this one line where they say, well, and then it's going to like carry on. Like, you want that delay there, but you don't want it on the whole song. So you want to be able to dial it in right before
Well,
and dial it back out.
And the nice thing with the way like that controller is designed, I think it'll give you, yours has what, like 8 1 through 8. Yeah, so channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, track 1, track 2, track 3. Once you get into that mentality, you do have a physical controller.
Another way to look at it would be the reverb. You could have those, those first 3 could be set for the reverbs on vocal 1, 2, and 3, so that during the regular part of the song, there's a little bit of reverb just because it's nice. And then when it gets to the chorus, they want to really kick out. You want to have more reverb on that because it's going to fill out with all the rest of what's going on. And you got to kick on, the one for the snare. The reverb there is on 4.
Oh, and if you're adjusting the reverb throughout the song, then automation.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, like, if you were recording, you can record those automation lanes using those knobs right there. So you could just be listening and say, rather than having to say, try to automate and try to figure out where it is, and dialing it in, you can just actually listening back, dial, tweak it live and then just record what you're doing there on the automation lane.
I just got an idea for like one of the next couple of weeks themes. Automation. and using those for that purpose. It's one that we've been talking in the back rooms. Like the last couple of nights, there's been at least 2 or 3 discussions about using it to fix something.
Exactly. And again, the ease of saying, oh, I got knobs here, and I say, oh, when I twist this, tell the software, when I twist this, what do you want to do? Oh, I want you to do that.
Well,
and there it is.
The beauty of recording this way, not only can you record notes that you're hitting, you can record knobs that you're turning. So when automation is set to read right, then anything I'm doing while this song is playing, remember, and next time I play it, do the same things. Recording your automation, if you get to that level, you are a pro.
Yeah. And again, just with that, like, let's say 2 of those knobs are, this guitar and that guitar. And you just basically say, okay, this is going to be the pan control. So they're both in the middle, or they're both wherever they are. And then as the track's going on, like this one hard left, and then this one comes left as that one goes right. And then, they chase each other back and forth. Like, just from turning knobs like that, you can do experimental stuff like mess with people like that faster than, trying to draw it out in Sonobus or whatever, which is also, a good option. But
And you know, as like a guitarist and a bassist, like you guys will do that kind of stuff, like bring your volume up and turn the knob for effect sometimes. But like when you're recording and you've got all the parts, it's more reliable to actually record it in as automation. And if you do need to adjust it, you can always go back and adjust the automation without having to re-record the track. Because if you're doing it manually and you don't like what you did, you're gonna have to do the track again to replace it.
Yeah, I do see people adjust their volume a lot of times, but a lot of times it's doing things like kicking into a solo, or they didn't realize, like at sound check they were fine, but now because the bass is louder than they thought or whatever, they have to go louder than they are. So
Yeah,
an adjustment like that, if it's a live thing,
or
whatever,
they're
that's
in
fine.
they're in the habit of like bringing their volume all the way down because when it's on, the distortion hums a little bit. So, in the old days, they would just bring it down one way or another so that it wasn't making noise when everything was silent.
One way to fix that is a lot of guys, they'll have, if they have a strobe tuner, like a lot of guys, they'll have the pedal that's a little tuner, and it has the strobe on it, and it's in the pedal board. So if they're playing guitar, their pedal board has a little tuner in it. If you click the tuner on, that kills the sound. Like so if you did, it's basically an automatic mute. So a lot of people, they'll just use that tuner to they can just click onto the tuner right there, and then whatever volume the guitar is at doesn't matter. You're getting no sound because it's getting cut off by that tuner before it gets to the amp.
Yeah,
That's really good.
I think any musician who's pushing a line signal on stage wants to have a kill button
Yep.
in one way, shape, or form.
For me, like
And
my
hopefully
bass is passive.
it doesn't wear out, because if you're knobbing it, like knobs will wear out if you do it all the time. Like you don't want to do that. If you can get to a easier solution that doesn't wear out as you do it 1,000 times, like this headset, like this flip up mic, they suck.
It's
And
trouble.
anybody out there who wants to like use these wireless headsets with flip up mics on a day-to-day basis for 8 to 10 hours of work where they have to mute unmute, you won't get a year and a half, if you're lucky, flipping your mic up and down.
That's where you're better off getting used to clicking the mute, but a lot of times you're not in front of it
I
because
want a
it's loud.
button.
Yeah.
I want a button next time. The button doesn't wear out as fast as this shit.
Yeah. And sometimes, like you said, it's an inline switch or whatever on the, if it was a wired mic, it would be on the switch or on the cord itself. But yeah, those.
Yeah, and
those
if
are
it's something
usually more
that's easy to
reliable.
replace, if you are dealing with a cord and it's got a button in the middle of it, and if the button goes out, a smart design would say, oh, well, if the button goes out, just open it up, replace this, and good to go.
Or the whole cord is removable at both ends, so you can just hey, I need a new cord.
Yeah,
because I've
replace the cord.
Yeah, but other ones, it's all built in, and the whole thing. Oh, I just need a new one of those. That's always a problem too. Replacing stuff. But we still have a couple more coming up today.
Yeah, well, that last one, I just want to give them kudos. When it comes to mobile music production, I think this is one of the coolest channels I found so far, compelling me that, like, if somebody's got an iPad that they don't know what to do with it, I'll find something to do with it, and I'll play with some of these toys this dude's playing with.
Yep. Definitely cool. And like you said, the routing was definitely something different, because we're, being more PC guys, it's more of a PC thing, and you don't really have that much, it's usually not an interface like that where it's just this, grab it, this, that, it's just much more intuitive on a tablet, it seems. And again,
Well,
the controls are more limited.
And you see the benefit, like on the road. I'd rather lug an iPad around on stage than a laptop.
I see a ton of singers who have laptops or iPads, I should say, for lyrics. They just have the iPad on a little, thing that just clips onto their mic stand, and it's just there in front of them all the time. They have a little, they have their own little power brick, so they can have it plugged in, so they don't have to worry about it running out of charge. And
yeah, if I do have to do something on a stage or on the road, I think I'm pretty dead set that I do not want to rely on a laptop for my sound. Anything going on with my sound while I'm playing live, I do not want that laptop there to depend on. Like I might use it to do other stuff, but not mission critical to make sound.
I want to say that one of the bands that we do work with, it does have, the keyboard player does have a laptop that's always part of his setup. It's always mounted on the side of his keyboard there, but I don't think it's an every sound thing. I think it is a very specific sounds, like we need a certain sound effect for, you know,
He might be loading a sample. He might be loading a sample that's part of a virtual library.
And other than that, he uses it for lyrics. So it's, you know, to have lyrics on the screen that he can just, you know, oh, that song, boom, he can just bring it up right there on the laptop screen, since he has it there anyway for the individual sounds that he only needs. But it's not every sound. I mean, he's got keyboards that are perfectly capable of everything.
Yeah, so if the laptop was to crap out, worst case, he wouldn't have some special effects and he wouldn't know what the hell to say.
And in that case, have the lyrics printed out, you know, on paper somewhere in a bag, so that if
backup,
like you said, if it does crash,
if you don't want to go with two laptops, if I had to depend on a laptop like a piece of music equipment, then I'd need to bring at least two laptops, because I will bring two keyboards, because if this one fucks up, that's why I bought the F6.
Yep. And for me, I mean, my bass has always seemed so solid that it's like, you know, I could like throw my bass across the stage and it would probably be fine. I mean, I don't want to curse myself, but I mean, it's a 5-string and it's solid and it's heavy. So I've like never even really considered having a second bass on stage just in case, because my bass is so solid and because I'm careful with it and all of that. But guitar wise, I do see people, you know, bring multiple guitars, and in some cases, you know, one's going to be in standard tuning and one is drop tuning or something.
Yeah,
so you know, there's a reason for that kind of thing. I get it. Or different.
That's
sounds,
the
totally
biggest reason why a guitarist might want to lug more than one. It's usually because they're multi-tuning.
And in that case, again, you can have a pedal where it's a drop tuner, where, you know, if it's like a regular expression pedal, and, you know, if it's just fully upright, you're normal tuning, and you could just tune down, you know, a half step, a whole step, you know, blah, 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 all the way down to a whole octave down. You know, some of those pedals will avoid the need to have multiple guitars, and some people just have a second guitar just in case, like the one guitar player.
Well, you break a string, like, hey, broke a string, toss me the backup. I'm gonna finish out this song. Get a fucking new string on there.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, that's happened before. And then there's also, you know, if it is something that's more drastic than a string, where, like, you know, no amount of, you know, a few moments is going to fix the guitar that they have, they'll just switch to the backup guitar and you know, stay with it. But you never want to see that happen. One of the guitar players we've been playing with for years and years, he always brings two guitars, and we have never seen the second guitar come out of the case ever, because it's just there. Just in case.
His primary's that good.
Yeah, exactly. Just never, you know, it's a Les Paul custom, so there's no, I mean, and the one in the one in the case is also a Les Paul custom, so it's like, you know,
no more explanation needed.
Yeah. It's no loss going to the backup guitar, but, like, you know, that has never had to come out because of the fact that the one, you know, primary has just always been 100% solid. But good to have backups anyway. I get why people do it. Some people even have a backup, they have a backup head, like one of the bass players has the head for the bass, and so in a combo cabinet, it's all in one piece, but it's two separate bass heads that are half size modules or half width modules. So it's like two of them mounted next to each other. He's only using the one. But if there's ever a problem, the other one, you know, it's just like you move two cables over here and one cable in the back, and you're back in business, even if you completely fried the, you know, the bass head essentially. So it's a good way to have a backup just built into the whole setup, so that you don't have to worry about it, and it's there. And if there's a problem, you think it's the bass head, you can just switch the cables and go, nope, see, it's fine on this one too. Different ways to do it.
Troubleshooting, yeah.
A way to avoid it's pre-troubleshooting. That's, you know, shooting the trouble before it happens, so that when it happens, you're like, oh, nope, do one quick thing and you're all better.
Well, preparing ahead of time.
Because you know something's going to go bad eventually, and sometimes it's, you know, you plug into bad power. I mean, we've had issues with some generators lately where, you know, power sags or power drops out multiple times, and, you know, the whole system's getting rebooted every couple minutes because everything's fine for a couple minutes to do a song, and then all of a sudden, and you have to, you know, fire everything back up. And a lot of the equipment just does not like that at all.
No, that can break some equipment and computers. Computers don't like that, especially if it happens a lot.
Exactly. So it's important. And in the mix, we've definitely visited this page. This is.
Oh, I was going to say, you know this dude, right? Oh, he's so good. I mean, every time we have any topic, and when he's covering it, he is Top Pro.
Absolutely.
At In the Mix over on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And for his, you know, we do have a lot of Fruity Loops guys. I mean, more than half the questions I've had in the last couple of weeks are all coming from Fruity Loopers.
Yep. FL, good stuff. And that's the thing, is I haven't worked at all with the workflow in Fruity Loops, so I can't speak to that. But
well, these are built into the box when it comes to the conversion.
Nice.
And
again,
it's
I've always liked his I've always liked his delivery, and he's always got good information. So definitely cool.
So this is audio to MIDI chords, Fruity Loop Studio, free and simple method.
Right.
Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to get the notes or chords from any sample or even a full song in FL Studio. This is going to be a quick video, so let's get right into it. This method will give you both the chords and melodies, but if you just have a melody, there's an even easier way to do it. I've made a video just here, but if you have a more complicated example like a mix or a sample like this, this is the technique for you. It's a lovely piano sample, and you can hear there's chords and also a little bit of a top line melody there. So wherever you've sent your audio, or just right onto the master channel, that's how I like to do it, we're going to load a plugin called Wave Candy. So under Visual, look for Wave Candy. We don't need the mixer anymore, so I'm just going to close that. We have a control box and also the visualizer here. I'm going to make this a little bit larger, change to spectrum mode, increase the scale to maximum, change the max resolution to at least 496, and then I like pushing the update speed so that it's a little bit slower. What we can see is this spectrum highlighting all of the different notes that are being played. We can adjust the dB range to get a little bit more clarity. If I push this up, it becomes very noisy. And if I pull it down a little bit, we get a little bit more clarity. We can also pause the visualizer by pressing this sort of snowflake here, or we can pause and unpause by middle clicking with a mouse over the spectrum here. As I hover over each of these sort of heat map areas, it's going to show me down in this bottom right corner which note we have. A sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and then you can simply copy these notes into any generator you want. So I have this synthesizer here, and I'm just going to copy those notes over. So if I open the piano roll, it was A sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and then on the top we had another D sharp, and then at the bottom it looks like we have another F sharp. So it's quite straightforward, but there's a few things you can do to make it even easier. The first is if you go to the piano roll menu here, go to View, and then Key Labels. I like having it on all notes. Sometimes it's only on root notes, and then it only labels each C. So you can see now the piano roll is actually quite bare. It makes it a little bit more difficult to identify notes. So that is View, Key Labels, and I just select all notes. And something that I find quite helpful is to double click the sample, pull open its wrapper, and I just drag the audio straight from here onto the piano roll. And then you can see the waveform has been added behind these notes, and that makes it nice and easy to line up your chords and melodies exactly the same as the sample. And if you want to get rid of that, go into View, and then you can just turn off the background waveform here. Nice and simple. So if I just add in the rest of these notes here, I'll skip ahead. You can see, for instance, I've got a C sharp there. It looks like the F sharp carries on. It looks like we have another D sharp here. Using that waveform as a guide, I've tried to copy this as closely as I can, at least the notes. So if I play the original, and then R1. So I don't like the sound as much, but the notes are correct. Something we could do to make this sound a little bit better is to select some of the notes and then use one of the tools here. So tools, the strum tool, what we can do is just sort of roll this a little bit. If I just play this here. Yeah, okay, so it adds a little bit more of a roll when it's being played so that it's not quite so static. But if you've got a sample that's a little bit more complicated, you can see all you need to do using this method is make sure that you have the dB range dialed in right. So if you have it too high, there's just loads and loads of noise. You can still see the notes, but it's a little bit more complicated. So pull the dB range down. You can see those bass notes down at the bottom. You can see the notes of the guitar, especially if I freeze it here. You can see all the different notes being played, and you can actually discern the melody on the top when that starts playing as well. And the last thing I want to show you is just how to combine this with an EQ to really hone in on the part of the mix or focus in on the part that you're looking for. So you can see the trace can get a bit confusing. So if you just roll away the bass, roll away the top end, now it's pretty easy to see what your chords were, and there's not as much distracting you. And of course you can freeze this with a middle click and hone in on any of those notes. Something else that can be really useful, if I just pull this back out, is also just expanding the Wave Candy display so that you have a little bit more space to work with. You'll still see the notes in the bottom right hand corner, but it gives you a little bit more sensitivity or precision. You want to say hi to everyone, Solo? So that's everything. So that's everything for today. I hope you found it really helpful. And here's your little Solo update. I know a lot of people have been asking about my puppy, so here he is. He's not so little anymore. Anyway, hope you found that helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Hey, buddy.
Damn, Michael is smooth over at In the Mix on YouTube.
Increasing that display size is definitely one of those keys that if something, if something you can't view it quite right, changing how you're viewing it, making the window bigger or what have you, can make a huge difference. Being able to, that puts more separation between the notes so you can more easily identify what's going on.
Oh, and I'm going to go grab that Wave Candy. And the Wave Candy, like, dude, that Wave Candy plugin has better visualizations of the tone than Melodyne. I don't know if it costs anything, but like that really is analyzing the pitches.
And like I said, at one point we had a project to try to get, all of the different DAWs together on a machine so that we could see what's this and, what's that with different add-ons in it. And this would be one of those, if that is an FL Studio specific thing, then that would be.
No. It's the Wave Candy's a VST plugin. I think. I don't think that's the built-in part of Fruity Loops.
Cool.
Matter of fact, pretty much everything we've looked at tonight has been all VS based plugins or a UX for Pro Tools. All of these can be used pretty much in any DAW.
Gotta love versatility.
That's important.
And portability, because again, you might be, you might have your favorite DAW that you right now, but it could be that you're missing out entirely on other features, or it could be that you don't realize that there's a much better workflow that you're not using because it's in a different program. Seeing somebody else work in a program and just smoothly go through and do things is worth checking out. So seeing some of these streamers who do some people on BandLab, some people elsewhere do streaming where they just do making of a song or go through them working on a song, and you'll see their flow in what they're using. It can be very eye-opening.
Yeah, actually watching people in action that way is how I learn a lot of the other DAWs.
Exactly. And even if a lot of it goes over your head, just seeing, even if you only pick out a couple of nuggets here and there, then, the next time you watch it or check out somebody doing it, you'll pick out other things that build on that. It kind of builds the whole thing out. Makes it easier to put everything together yourself.
Now, another one that I found with this at Music Tech Official, this is an Ableton approach, so again, these DAWs, if you happen to have a DAW that has a built-in audio to MIDI tool, by all means, get familiar with it. It's going to come in handy when you want to figure out being played in an audio file.
Yep. And a visualizer like that can help you to see, even if you're not fully analyzing, seeing a visualizer like that or finding one that does even an okay job of showing the notes can give you enough to build on, to figure out what's going on.
And when another band labber is asking you, like, what did you play there? What key are you in?
Yep.
Even if you don't know, you can use these so that you can tell somebody, well, I am in the key C.
Yep. Exactly.
When in doubt, say you're in the key. You're probably not wrong.
It's a good guess on a keyboard thing for sure. C is very easy to play, and so is A minor.
So this is a Music Tech Ableton Live tutorial converting audio to MIDI right out the box.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Lee Mermelan, and in this video, we're going to look at audio to MIDI conversion in Ableton Live. So Ableton has the ability to transcribe the data or the music within our audio files and turn them into MIDI data within a MIDI clip. And there's 3 different ways it can do this. If I just go to actually do the process, so if I control click and I go to the bottom of the top drop-down menu, we have convert harmony to new MIDI track, we have convert melody to new MIDI track, and convert drums to new MIDI track. So converting drums to new MIDI track, as you'd expect, is about transcribing percussive parts and putting them in the context of being a MIDI clip. Convert melody is to take a single note line, so not polyphonic, not chords, just single melodies, and convert those into MIDI data. And then convert harmony is about chords and trying to transcribe simultaneous notes from an audio file. So if we go to our drum beat to begin with, so if I want to convert that, I just control, click, and go convert drums to new MIDI track. So that's transcribed the main parts of the percussion there. It sounds obviously different because it's loaded a default drum machine in there to play those sounds. But from that point onwards, we can take that drum beat and turn it into our own from a sonic point of view, or go in and edit the MIDI and modify that as well. So if I go to my bass line, I believe it was, the one above, yeah. Okay, and we do the same process, but we choose convert melody to new MIDI track. So that's converted pretty much the same parts that are in there. Occasionally we need to go in and make an occasional edit to the notes that are in there just to make them a bit more in keeping with the original file. And then we have our chords as well, which are these. So this is going to be a harmony conversion, so convert harmony to new MIDI track. So now I have the chords taken from an audio loop. Now I also have the bass line taken from another audio loop and the drum pattern taken from another audio loop too. This doesn't have to be pre-given loops that you use. You can single out a section of an existing song and transcribe a piece of melody or drum beat from that song. Key tips with that is make sure they are as soloed as possible within the track. So if it's a drum beat and if it's electronic music, try and go for the intro where the drum is by itself as much as possible. Or if it's a melody line, if it happens to be on its own on the build-up, take it from that section rather than when it's alongside the bass and the drums that happen on the main section as well. So that's using the audio to MIDI function to be able to transcribe drums, melody, and harmony.
And that was at Music Tech Official over on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Another good one.
Now he made a really good point at the end when it comes to this audio MIDI conversion approach. You want isolated tracks as much as possible so that it just focuses on a guitar or a bass or a drum without hearing everything together. It's not to say that it can't isolate those things for you, but that's why I'm using the BandLab splitter right now, to break up the tracks that I need to go to this step.
Yep, exactly. And again, the cleaner, the more isolation, that's the key point right there. The more isolated you can give it the part, the better off you are. Even if you're just kind of, even if you kind of are doing it by ear and you can figure out a part and you're like, oh, I can't figure out what key this is in, but maybe I can play along with parts of it. And you can play along with parts of it, feed that in, because that's a very isolated track of just a single instrument melody line. It'll have a lot easier time figuring out what's going on.
Yeah, the moment you actually start to break down the song, like this chord, that chord, this chord, that chord, in measures, can practically recreate the song at that point.
Exactly. And that's what it comes down to, because a lot of times you can figure it out just, by ear or just by going through it little bit by bit. You get little parts of it, and that as as the familiarity, you kind of figure where it's going to go or where you expect it to go or where it feels like it's going. And a lot of times you're right. And you just, you jump there and you make that part and you say, oh, okay, now I'm only missing, 10% of the song. And then if those are the parts that are still confusing you, you can play that into something like this and have it tell you what's going on.
For me, after I know the first chord or the key,
it's usually great.
I start to get more and more comfortable.
Exactly. Because all the other options just make sense at that point.
So our last one, Easy Drummer is a popular one with some of us in the back as far as drum engines go. And Superior Drummer is their flagship product for drums. And I did not know that Superior Drummer does some of what we were talking about tonight. And specialty is taking audio drum beats and turning them back into controllable MIDI drum beats with all the Superior Drum sounds.
Nice. Yeah. I remember working with a different version of one of those, but I've seen the workflow of Easy Drummer through a couple of guys in the back there.
Well,
amazing.
Easy Drummer's an awesome choice. It's a more economical choice where if you just want to arrange the drum parts, and Easy Drummer they both come with a zillion loop libraries of beats in every style. So you get a bar here, repeat it a couple times, get a bar there, repeat it a couple times. You can put beats really fast with Easy Drummer. The compelling reason to go with Superior Drummer is if you're complete set control, you can virtually move mics so that the bass drum, you can move the mic virtually to get that kind of sound, and that's the higher level. A recording engineer might do all sorts of shit to a drum kit to get a certain sound for a band.
Yep.
And Superior Drummer gives ability in your drum sound control, but the gravy is that it also does have the audio to MIDI brain, and that feature will take drum beats that are in audio and convert them back into MIDI so that you can get that hi-hat or that cowbell.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that drums are very very specific. Like when you look at wave, if you look at a wave of all the different tracks in a big project, and you could totally tell what the drums are because of the way the transients work. The way that kick has the big up front and then disappears, and all of them that have that snap and then they disappear, or they if they're going to tail on, you'll see them tail on, but very distinct compared to the other types of tracks that you'll see. So it's understandable that it can kind of look at that and see, that's definitely a snare or that's definitely a kick or whatever, based on where it is pitch wise and what the actual wave looks like.
Yeah, of all the things that we've seen examples of converting tonight, drums lend themselves to these engines better. And there's multiple sounds, but at the same time, they tend to be either at separate times, and once the trigger is isolated, then MIDI, I hit that sound at this time, and MIDI just interprets that it heard a sound.
Yep. It heard a sound.
And then you
this much.
decide what you want that sound to be after.
Yep. He knows the intensity.
That's the whole mapping approach. Once you do convert that sound in those hits into MIDI, you've set triggers, and now you pick sounds, and all of a sudden you're on a totally different drum.
And ideally, it's picking out velocities as well, so that you're getting the human factor, as far as it's not just, tick tock 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 tick tock tock tock. You're getting how you're actually playing it. So it's going to vary in how hard you hit and all of that. So you'll actually pick up the velocity on things that are reading it properly.
Yeah, you've seen some of the software we looked at tonight was actually recognizing velocity. The mobile one, it was like, holy shit, man. It did bring in all the actual velocity.
Exactly.
So our last one for tonight is going to be about Superior Drummer. It comes from In the DAW over on YouTube. Yeah, another new one that I'm like, yes, I subscribe. Twist my arm. And he's going to show us Superior Drummer 3, the audio to MIDI that's built right in. If you don't have the product, this might be the reason to upgrade from Easy Drummer to Superior Drummer. For me, it's a compelling one.
Nice.
Oh, I got this one hiding in the Leap.
It's hiding over there, isn't it? Probably that bottom one.
Hello everybody, this is Jerry Mateo with In the DAW. Welcome back. Today's video is going to be a really quick and easy one. I'm going to show you how you can utilize Superior Drummer 3 and its tracker function to actually create MIDI triggers to trigger samples from Superior Drummer 3. Now, this is essentially utilizing the audio to MIDI function and is very, very powerful if you're sent tracks that don't exactly sound great. So in this case, let's listen to the drum kit that I want to change something out of. This is a track that was sent to me by my cousin Steve Bonilla, and this was obviously a sampled kit, and I just felt like the kick drum had a little bit too little to it. So let's bypass everything and listen to the drum kit by itself. So as you can kind of hear from that, hopefully, it has a very interesting vibe to it. I'm not very happy with this kick drum whatsoever. And even after doing some processing, it feels really weird because I have to gate it out, add some synthetic low end, and then do some EQ. And overall, I felt like it was doing way too much work for something that wasn't really recorded or wasn't even sampled to be very good. I'm also hearing lots of weird double hits. Like right there especially. It almost sounds like the notes are bleeding into themselves. And you can also hear the kind of bloom of the low end is really weird. So that would require transient shaping, gating, adding low end, then doing some EQ and some compression. Kind of a lot of work for something that doesn't really sound good. So all we have to do is grab Superior Drummer 3, choose a kit that we like. By default, I always use the Death and Darkness Metallic Black kit. We go into the tracker section and we simply grab the tracks. So these tracks are right here. We have the clap, hi-hat, and kick drum. We drag it down, and Superior Drummer is going to automatically determine what things are. And this is based off of what you have in your kit. So because I don't have a clap, the clap is going to be turned into a snare drum. The hi-hats are going to be hi-hats, and the kick drum is going to be a kick drum. So let's solo up the kick drum and just take a quick look and listen. That's the real kick. This is the Superior Drummer blend. Now we can use this mix knob to get more or less of the sound. But personally, I was not feeling that whatsoever. Now I can remove these tracks that we don't need, which I just did earlier to the hi-hat. But you can also use these extra tracks if you have a real kit to be able to actually get rid of bleed. So you simply click right here where it says reduce bleed, you hit OK, and you turn this knob up. This is going to get rid of false positive triggers, but in this case, it's a triggered sample, so we don't have to worry about that. I'm going to hit remove, do export, and we can either do all tracks combined. So if we did do the kick, snare, and hi-hat, it would be all of them combined. In this case, I just want the drum kick. So we're going to remove this, drag this down, and we can get out of it. Now, Superior Drummer is going to trigger these kicks however I want it. And if I want to have more control over it, I could easily just drag it into my session and have it play back from my DAW. Pretty simple, pretty easy, right? So the next step is we could simply just mix this. So I've already done this in this case right here, and check out how it sounds. Versus the original kick. The new one. A lot less work needed, and I can even get rid of the tone generator. And it sounds really good actually. So now I can just simply put this into the mix and bypass the old kick drum. And as you can hear, we don't get that weird artifact of two cheap triggers sampling at the same time and kind of just overlapping. Superior Drummer does a really good job of kind of using round robins and chokes to make it sound like how a real kick drum would be hit if it was hit multiple times in a row. You can really hear it right here. That's two distinct hits versus this. You can kind of hear like this weird double trigger even though it doesn't show a double trigger. So Superior Drummer, much better in my opinion. And honestly, we managed to get a pretty good sound using this kick drum versus the weird paper kick drum. Anyway, that's it for this video. I just wanted to give you a quick demonstration on how to utilize audio to MIDI inside of Superior Drummer 3. If you like this video, consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. And remember to check out our website inthedaw.com where we have some free impulse responses and some free Helix presets. And we are currently in the works of putting up some free presets for Superior Drummer 3 because we love Superior Drummer 3 a ton. And that's it for this video. This is Jerry Mateo within the DAW. I will see you guys next time.
Shit, I want to love Superior Drummer 3 too.
Feel that Superior Drummer 3 love.
Well, you see some of the like drum massaging you can do with Superior Drummer. Like it does give you the extra level of tone adjustment. And his go-to kit is like one of the best kits that I've heard a sampled drum.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and easy enough to trigger and easy enough to you can trigger that with anything, and that's one of those things that's fun is you could sit there with pencils on your tabletop and just do and
Exactly. Beatboxers.
Yeah,
beatboxers these days should be utilizing what we looked at tonight and converting their beatboxes into MIDI beats that can get a bigger box.
Yep. I think I need a bigger box. Exactly.
So that one was at In the DAW, a channel I will be checking out more for sure.
For me as well. Nice.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of good stuff. Chances are when we're looking at any given thing one night, when I go look at automation, I bet you there's one in here.
Surprised me a bit.
I perused it.
I really enjoyed the topic that you picked tonight with the audio to MIDI is definitely solid, and all the different options that we have, the different programs. Some of them, some paid, some free, but lots of different things to choose from.
I hit the wrong one. I meant to hit the background. It's like, whoa, I muted Glenn. Damn it, I'm going to hell.
Nah, it's all good. But definitely love it. like good topic, audio to MIDI, and got a lot of different opinions on it, a lot of different options, a lot of different ways to get the solutions that we're looking for here. But hopefully that inspires people to do more stuff with music, because you can just, whether it's you don't have to feel like you have to be a virtuoso in order to get something and make something really sounding good come out of it.
Exactly. Chances are you are musically inclined, regardless of whether you can play. Playing an instrument is the obstacle. We are showing you ways to get around that wall.
Yep, exactly. And
because
ways
I
that
can't play a violin, but I can fake it.
Yeah, exactly. And you might know, you might have friends who are musicians who know nothing about recording anything or things like that, and you could get good on the recording, how to figure out how to help them get their stuff recorded, or things like that. There's other ways to be useful in music other than being a musician as well. So if you have no musical talent, you could still try to be useful in other ways if you.
I feel like I have more fun on the production and engineering side than I do on the performance side. I mean, don't get me wrong, like performing is the reason why I started with music, but sound sculpting and shaping is really fun.
And even just being involved, being part of the band, essentially, whether you're an extended part of the band or whether you're in the band, are both alluring. Like if you're at a venue and you're with the band, you get certain perks sometimes, and just even just people, oh wait, you're with the band, oh cool, like you get that kind of thing.
Hey,
if I'm trying to get through and get a beer,
you might get a date out of it.
It's been known to happen, right? Lots of good venues, and that's the thing is you're out there all the time also, and a lot of times these bands, they really do draw in good crowds. So going out to local venues, supporting local musicians, supporting local venues, so whether it's around by you or whether you figure out a group of people to just go out and find musicians or find bands or find bars where they're doing live bands, definitely helps everybody out.
Yeah, if you want to be a performing musician, get out there.
Yeah, even at open jams, just to get out there and start doing something, because getting out there and playing, gets you past the whole getting on stage and playing, how to speed up, getting on stage, getting tuned up, starting to play, all that kind of stuff, not being worried about who's in the crowd or how many people are in the crowd or whatever. You're just focusing on getting your music done and performing what you need to do on stage, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do a performing night theme.
Absolutely.
That's another one that's going to be coming.
Absolutely.
How to get the best performance.
For this time, we went just past pumpkin time, so good job, and we got out to just about the right time here. We want to make sure we give everybody enough time to sleep, rest up, and be ready for SR tomorrow, right?
Yeah, John's tomorrow night.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us tonight, and again, we'll have more stuff next time on Talking Shh.
IT.
Thanks, everybody. Catch you again next time.
Everyone.
Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some BandLab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.